to grow and learn and become a bigger person than I had ever been. And for that work, I needed to be both discerning and have empathy for people and hear them, hear where they are, and yet still maintain some discernment and perspective about what was going to be the best for the whole situation. Recently it became clear that I wanted to move on, to retire, and I wanted to come home. As long as I was in California, Oregon always still felt like home. And I still have family here on the North Coast, and I'm very grateful to be back. I am falling in love with Gerhardt, and it's not really that new. It's kind of like a second home. My grandparents built a house in Manzanita starting in the 1930s, and we were all over the North Coast for many years, coming up to golf and do all sorts of fun stuff. So I'm very at home here, although I have only been here for a few months. I came here in late in July. I am looking for what's next for me, and I always want to be challenging myself to learn and grow. And now I have time to be able to give back. And that's what I would like to have the opportunity to do here. I think I could be of value to the community, and I'd like the opportunity to try.
Thank you. And I apologize again for jumping the gun like that. It's normal for me to do something different. Do you believe the comprehensive plan as written is still applicable? Does it need to be changed? If so, how?
Well, let me just start by saying that my understanding of the role of a planning commissioner is to represent the community, not themselves personally. However, as an individual, I am in agreement with the comprehensive plan that Gerhardt would stay predominantly residential with limited commercial development. Comprehensive plan also places a high priority on our fire and police services, which I agree with strongly. I also feel that the comprehensive plan equally supports protecting our resources. The estuary, the dunes, the beach, the beautiful place that we have here. I think both the small residential and the resources are almost, to me, part of the same picture, that they would go together. I support commercial as defined and limited by the comprehensive plan and the city ordinances, and I think that those businesses that comply with those deserve all support of the city and the residents here to be successful.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for applying. What are your thoughts for now and the near future for Gerhardt? Please be as specific as possible and address Gerhardt maintaining its residential community feel, which you've already sort of done. Or would you prefer additional commercial and tourist growth and how they pertain to the comprehensive plan?
No, as I said, I think I personally see the comprehensive plan as being the right path. Near future, I know that there are some significant projects and goals for the city, new fire hall, and continuing issues around commercial development or short-term rentals or preserving the natural resources here. And I know that there's, at times, conflict. And I would like to help in any way to, and I'm only one person, but part of what I would like to see is better, maybe better communication. I would like to be part of helping things progress rather than polarize.
Thank you.
Give me just a minute to finish writing my notes. Okay, let me start by saying thank you for applying. I love that. You just showed up and decided you're going to help, and I love it. So the next question is, how do you see your role as a planning commission member in city government? Describe your understanding of the relationship and interaction between the planning commission and the city council.
My understanding is that the planning commission hears, researches, and looks into applications for zoning variances or conditional variances, new comprehensive plan, any number of different functions that would fall to the planning commission. They research, have hearings, come to a recommendation that goes to the city council. The city council has all authority to make final decisions.
Thank you.
All right. Are you aware of any present or future conflict of interest that you might have as a member of the planning commission? If a situation should arise, would you excuse yourself from voting?
I'm not aware of any conflict of interest, and if one came up, I absolutely would excuse myself.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you, as a candidate for the planning commission, have a question of any of the members of the city council?
I just want to thank everyone that I've spoken to. Many people have been generous with their time to answer my questions up to today, and I don't have any more.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Eric Halpern.
Hello. I'm Eric Halpern. I live on 10th Street near Cottage, and I also own an adjacent property behind me that faces onto 9th Street. I moved here in 2017. I've been on the Gerhardt Budget Committee for 2 years. Prior to moving here to Gerhardt, I lived in Netarts in Tillamook County. I was an optometrist for 27 years there, along with my wife. And so for roughly 30 years, I've been a resident of the North Coast and a small business owner. And that's my geographical background. As far as education, besides my Doctor of Optometry degree, I have a degree in biology. I also have a degree in human geography, which is the study of the relationship and interrelationships of people and the place they live, the impacts of people on the planet, and the impacts of the earth on people. I think this gives me a good background to be a member of the Planning Commission, understanding land use and how people interact with the land. I'm interested in being on the Planning Commission to contribute and to the betterment of my community. I appreciate your considering my application, and I feel that I would be a conscientious and attentive and level-headed member of such a committee.
Okay, thank you. Sharon.
Thank you for applying. Appreciate it. Do you believe in the comprehensive plan as written is still applicable? Does it need to be changed? If so, how?
You know, the general overall structure of the plan I certainly think is appropriate, using the LCDC goals as format and addressing all of those. I'm not in a position to consider each and every sub-goal and policy, whether they're appropriate or not. I will say the plan could use some editing. There are quite a few typos, and the format is somewhat disjunctive. And so since I was going through the process of reading it, I took the liberty to try and clean it up. And I have that copy here. I'm curious, who's the keeper of the plan? Where does it reside? Is it with the city manager? Is it with the administrator?
Well, I believe we all have a copy.
If it needed to be edited, who would do that?
I believe the record keeper would be, it would fall under the umbrella of Chad and his designee.
And any edit would need to go through the process of going through the planning commission and the city council, including the ones that are the misspellings and things
Even
like
just
that.
the typos.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll submit this, and you can do with it as you will, but I did go through the process of trying to clean it up.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then, the only other thing I would suggest, it seemed to me as a user, a reader of the plan, if there was some, if there could be some kind of, an introduction to it, to describe when it was created, what the process of, is there some regular appraisal of it? Is, where, I didn't see in the city charter anything about the comprehensive plan. So is there a dictate as to how often it should be addressed? It should be re-advised every 5 years or every 10 years. And who does that? Was it a citizens committee that did that? I'm presuming that it was. When it was amended in 2022, who did that? And a little history of that, of what was created when and when amendments were made, so that a user looks at it and says, oh, this part was created in 1994, but this section over here was put in 2018. Then we would know what was old history and what was new history. I think that might be helpful to a user. And I think that's my only comment about the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next question is, what are your thoughts for now and the future of Gerhardt? Please be as specific as possible and address Gerhardt maintaining its residential community feel, or would you prefer additional commercial and tourist growth? And how do they pertain to the comprehensive plan?
So, you know, that, as the other applicants have stated, it is all right in the comprehensive plan. Under general development goals, residential development policies, the city will preserve and maintain the predominantly residential character of Gerhardt, appropriate zoning, land use development regulations, and commercial development policies. The city will limit commercial activity in the city, et cetera, to a level that is compatible with Gerhardt's residential character. So that's stated very clearly right at the front of the comprehensive plan. I certainly support that myself.
Good, thank you.
Okay. How do you see your role as a planning commission member in the city government? Describe your understanding of the relationship and interaction between the planning commission and the city council.
So, as the other applicant stated, I understand that the role of the commission is advisory, and we do research to understand what kind of development is being suggested to the city, and that the council has the authority to make the final decisions.
Thank you.
Are you aware of any present or future conflict of interest you might have as a member of the Planning Commission? If a situation should arise, would you excuse yourself from voting?
I'm not aware of any conflicts that I currently have. I'm not expecting to have any, but should something arise, I would recuse myself.
Do you, as a candidate for the planning commission, have a question of any of the members of the city council other than the questions you've already asked?
Well, I would only just ask if any council member has a different perception of what the planning commission's role is relative to the city council. And if any city council member has a different perception of what the future of Gerhardt should be, other than what all of us applicants have stated as our goals for the city.
My answer would be no. I believe that the comprehensive plan is our path, as somebody already described it. It's to me, it's our guideline as to where we're going. And if we as a community start to feel like we're on the wrong path, then, as you said, I agree with you that it needs to be a citizen committee that comes together and redirects our course.
Thank you.
That's fine with me.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is Carl Lay? Is that Lay?
It's Lee, thank you. Good evening. Like everyone else, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. My wife and I live on Concession Court. I think the first thing to point out is we love Cannon Beach, we love Seaside, we love Astoria. We chose here to live, which will answer a lot of my other questions or questions you have. What do you think about the community? It's one of the things that we love about it. We love its character. I think my passion for that, for Gerhardt, combined with some of my experiences. Some of us have talked about education, some very impressive people here, thank you for that. I studied engineering and computer science like Henry, I think his name is. I worked in the software industry for most of my career. Have a lot of experience negotiating, again, finding that sort of win-win situation. Another thing, I served on 2 city commissions in my previous city I lived in outside of Seattle, Urban Village Development Commission, or essentially like a planning commission for a specific type of development, and also for economic vitality. I was the chair of that commission. So because of those backgrounds, I take those together. I think I can think critically, respectfully, and thoughtfully, consider things, work through some of the issues and challenges we have. Questions?
All right. So it's, yeah, it's Dana.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Thank you for replying. Wow, I'm impressed by your background. Do you believe that the comprehensive plan as written is still applicable? And does it need to be changed? And if so, how?
So, first of all, on whole, I abide by its spirit. As I said, that's why we moved here. I do think, in addition, I love the comments. I was vigorously nodding, you find things in the plan. I think we need some specificity and clarity in certain areas because I think we have a fair number of conflicts. We talk about Gerhardt, a lot of us think of Gerhardt west of 101. Gerhardt is 2 different communities west of 101, also along 101, it's a commercial community. East of 101, it's a semi-rural. When you first read the comprehensive plan, it talks about we're a I think it says semi-rural were the words it used. I actually went, what, doesn't make sense. I went up and looked up the definition. Except for the piece east of 101, we're a residential community, so that shows up, but we do different things at different times in the plan. We talk about not wanting to be a tourist destination. One of my questions at the end is what are our demographics and how have they changed? How many people own versus how many people are residents here? I see a shift and there's been new construction since I've lived here. And are we meeting those needs? People who come from Portland and own homes, God bless them, but by definition, they're tourists. They're coming to, what is the definition? To travel or visit and enjoy for pleasure. That's what they're doing. They have their houses here. That's great. I love that. What a lot of us don't want, myself included, is short-term rentals. We want to maintain the general character of the community. So getting the specificity in the comprehensive plan that would foster and embolden that would be important to me. Another thing, talking about tourist destination, I watched the last planning commission meeting a couple of times on the pickleball discussion, if I can call it that. And I think there was a reference in there about not wanting to become a regional center for recreation. Yet other places in the comprehensive plan, we talk about Gerhardt Golf Links being a central focus of the community, which is by definition a regional destination. It's not just here for the community. So I think we've got some things like that that we could look at that would go along with the specific edits that we need. Made a few other notes, talked about rural, semi-rural, et cetera. I think, no, I'll leave the other for the next question.
All right, that would be me. Excuse me. What are your thoughts for now and for the near future for Gerhardt? Please be as specific as possible and address Gerhardt maintaining its residential community feel, or would you prefer additional commercial and tourist growth and how they would pertain to the comprehensive plan?
I think the first things I just talked about, thank you for that, is talking about the short-term rentals. We all have concerns around that. We saw everything in politics over the last year plus with communities up and down the North Coast. As long as we're solid on that, I think communities can establish their own guidelines. That makes sense. I would be in favor of that. I like Lisa, if I remember correctly. What was your name? I'm sorry.
Jennifer.
Jennifer, I'm sorry. But said, I don't have a predisposed or predisposition on what my views are. I should be listening to multiple sides of the community and taking into account. and then reflecting that off the comprehensive plan. What is it saying? Because that should be our sort of our guiding document, if you will. So I agree with those things. I like what we have here. I also agree with the comment about what we do have here. I had a colleague in the East Coast who brought his son to work in Hillsborough, and I was talking to him over a Zoom or Teams call, and he goes, "Well, I visited your sleepy little town." And I didn't take offense at that. I like my sleepy little town. There's other places I can go for the entertainment I'm looking for. But I think the places we have to be sensitive to the residents, people who reside here, you know, the cottage and Pacific Way that we've talked about. Those places should be vibrant and alive. A sleepy little town is not coming to a place that is dead. And as long as those businesses abide by the rules, I had experience with sign codes that are really interesting. And I know why they're in place, they're absolutely necessary, and I agree with those. And I think that was one of the issues that at least was brought up anecdotally amongst one of the restaurants that recently left. So again, reflecting those things in the comprehensive plan, but taking into account what we have and where we want to go with the community's input.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see your role as a planning commission member in the city government? Describe your understanding of the relationship and interaction between the planning commission and the city council.
I won't be flippant and say ditto, but we've already all said that. We're a research advisory board. Again, the last planning commission was illuminating because it talked about, we will make a recommendation to the city council for ratification. If, you know, we would talk to the city attorney if there were judicial or quasi-judicial, which I was experienced with in previous roles, where the planning commission or development commission had to make decisions that would then get ratified by that, so they can sort of cross those boundaries.
Thank you for applying.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it. Are you aware of any present or future conflict of interest you might have as a member of the planning commission? If a situation should arise, would you excuse yourself from voting?
I know of no conflicts, and yes, of course, I would recuse myself if appropriate.
Okay. So then that brings us to the wrap-up question, which is where you have the opportunity to ask us questions.
I am curious, and I alluded to this about the mix. Have our demographics changed? You know, along Cottage, I don't know, the 2 cul-de-sacs that have been built in the last couple of years, you know, that changes our mix about the number of people who are here full-time versus people who own here but aren't here full-time and renters, et cetera. Has that changed appreciably over the last 5-10 years?
5%. Between the 2010 and 2020, so in Oregon, people have what's considered their primary domicile, and then they can have multiple residences. So if somebody owns a second home, if it's not their primary residence or domicile, then they're not actually a tourist. So they're just visiting. They're choosing between one residence or another, and so that's something that's confusing about the comp plan until you understand that what we're talking about is out of area visitors that are traveling more than 50 miles with the intent of spending the night in something that isn't their home, or they could do a day trip as well. But I believe it was 45% in 2010 that Gerhardt was their primary home. And I think it's 50% under the 2020 census. Our population growth, I want to say, was 24%. So there was a shift in either people buying a home or using their Gerhardt home as their primary home. And there also was for us at least, a pretty significant increase in total population.
Thank you for that. So first of all, we should be cognizant of that. We're right at that potential tipping point if there's a change. I also want to make clear I'm not denigrating people who this is a secondary residence or whatever the proper terminology is. I've tried to say positive things, but there is a difference. I know people who live on some of the smaller streets like A and B and say, I'm the one house, 8 other houses are dark around me 80% of the year. So it's just, it affects our quality of life overall.
And then our transient, our short-term rentals are regulated under our code.
Mm-hmm.
So a number of years ago, I think we were the first community. We certainly made law on this, where we capped the number of short-term rentals. And as those homes are sold, they'll be returned they're not grandfathered in as short-term rentals. They're grandfathered in as long as the owners of them own them. But if they're sold, then they come off the rules. And that's in our R1 and R2 neighborhoods. The condos that are by the hotel, those, one could not be a short-term rental and then become a short-term rental.
Right.
And that's just because of the character, as you and others have referenced, between traditional residential neighborhood versus a multifamily.
Yeah, and those high rises, as I term them, are an interesting thing. We call ourselves rural, semi-rural. Those aren't necessarily, we qualify rural for most people. So, and again, another inconsistency with the plan. I have more, but those are my questions for now.
Right. So our plan was adopted decades after those condos. And I think in a response to what people had seen in other developments on the coast. And the difference between our code and our comprehensive plan is that our comprehensive plan needs to be fully acknowledged. It then goes to the state for the state's DLCD and LCDC review. And then ultimately they have veto power. So that's why communities don't reopen their comprehensive plan every year, every 2 years, or because it's actually a very time-consuming process. And that includes Scrivener's errors, unfortunately, which is counterintuitive, but.
So the tree discussion that's been on the planning commission agenda for, seems like a year now, and maybe got wrapped up in July or so, does that go into the comprehensive plan? Would that be an update, or is that a separate?
That could be handled through our code. So the comprehensive plan is kind of the overarching vision and values plus land use.
Correct.
So it is, and we're required under state law to have one. It was acknowledged by the state, and then if the legislature does preemption, which they sometimes do, then that's handled usually in our code, because the comprehensive plan is more kind of a 20,000 square foot. And then in Oregon, if you have competing, if you have two things like health and safety is important in our comprehensive plan, but also there's things about density and things of that nature. So sometimes you have to go weigh the impact of one against the other. And then we're also required to have a 20-year billable inventory by the state. So it's a lot of competing kind of laws that get us to where we are now.
I've likely exceeded my time. Thank you. Apologies to you all. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Donna B. Nash.
Hi. I am a fairly new resident of Gerhardt. I bought a very old decrepit home on South Ocean Avenue about 3.5 years ago, and rebuilt it, and did not know how much I would enjoy living in Gerhardt, so I bought a second home on North Marion for the use of my family, and we've all been enjoying our time in Gerhardt tremendously. I don't have any experience in planning. My involvement in Gerhardt has been with the Gerhardt Association. I'm a vice president, and I've enjoyed working with the people who volunteer there and contribute to, hopefully, improving life for everybody in Gerhardt. My background, I am not brand new to Oregon. My late husband and I had a cow-calf operation of 6,000 acre ranch in Prineville for 15 years, and prior to that we had a starter ranch in Klamath Falls for a few years. So I have liked Oregon. My daughter currently lives in Portland, so I spend actually more than half of my time here. Rest of my background is I've been involved with gardens probably my whole adult life. I created a 2-acre garden in the Pasadena area, which 2 acres is pretty big for the Los Angeles area, and converted it from a pretty typical English garden to a Mediterranean, which was water saving, a very important thing in Southern California. Part of my enjoyment of Gearhart is just watching it rain. We have been suffering such a drought in California for years that I love seeing the rain. Anyway, the garden was quite a success and has been on, well, I sold the property a year ago, but was on national tours. It's been in Martha Stewart magazine, and it's also featured in a large book, Outstanding Gardens of America. So I'm very proud of that and kind of sad to not have it anymore. I'm a past president of the Arboretum Foundation. I served 3 terms running and raising money for a 126-acre county-owned, but run by the Arboretum Foundation. I served 3 terms as president of that. I'm involved in the Garden Conservancy of America, which raises money to preserve historic gardens across the United States. So they keep them from falling into developers' hands, and in most cases spend a lot of money restoring them to their former glory. Also a past docent at the Huntington Gardens Museum Art Gallery in San Marino. And I'm afraid if I regurgitate everything that everyone else has said, people are going to start falling asleep here. But I will try to make my answers as brief and state ahead of time that I agree with probably everything that's been said. If I could just say ditto, 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 we could move on faster. Okay, I'm ready.
All right. Do you believe that the comprehensive plan, as written, is still applicable? Does it need to be changed? If so, how?
I believe that it's applicable and that there's enough flexibility in it, in the language, to allow for the goals stated to be pursued in the foreseeable future, period.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts for now and the near future for Gearhart? Please be as specific as possible and address Gearhart maintaining its residential community feel, or would you prefer additional commercial and tourist growth, and how they pertain to the comprehensive plan?
My thoughts for the future of Gearhart are very much those stated in the comprehensive plan summary, primarily to preserve the low density and semi-rural characteristics of Gearhart, which is why so many residents have chosen to live here, and to be extremely conscious of our coastal and riparian environments. I believe we've experienced a growth in our permanent resident population since COVID, and for this reason we should probably look at opportunities to utilize existing commercially zoned properties to enhance services to all the residents. Encouraging Gearhart to be more of a tourist destination is not high on my personal list of priorities. Period.
Thank you very much for applying, appreciate it. How do you see your role as a planning commissioner member in city government? Describe your understanding of the relationship and interaction between the planning commission and the city council.
Planning commission members study and make recommendations to the city council on matters involving zoning, land use, and other matters relating to the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so number 4 is, are you aware of any present or future conflict of interest you might have as a member of the Planning Commission? If a situation should arise, would you excuse yourself from voting?
I'm not aware of any issues that would cause a conflict of interest, and if any would ever arise, I would certainly recuse myself from voting.
Okay, do you have any questions for us as a applicant for the planning commission? Do you have any questions for us?
I'd like to be really brief, so I'm just going to raise one issue. I was looking at some past minutes to just familiarize myself with the types of issues that are brought before the planning commission, and of course what caught my eye was the issue involving trees. A policy involving removal of trees and such, and I was wondering have there been any recommendations by the planning commission to city council on that issue, or is it still being studied?
I can answer that for you if you'd like, Mayor. The planning commission has gone through this. They're making recommendations to the city council, and the city council will be visiting this in the January city council meeting.
In
All things-
January?
Yeah, all things.
That's
working
not
out.
far away. No, I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Shelley O'Neill. Are you up?
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great. I have a little trouble hearing you in room, so I'm going to do the best I can to. I hear what you're saying, but I pretty much know what the flow is, so I think we'll be fine.
Do you have an opening statement you'd like to?
Well, I would like to just share a little bit about myself quickly. I lived in Gerhardt for about 2.5 years now, and I own a home on North Oak. I've visited Gerhardt for a number of years prior to that, and I have fallen in love with the town, I always say. And I have a huge desire to see it thrive. It's an amazing place like no other in Oregon for sure. I actively participate in what the town has to offer. I play golf, I'm a member of Gerhardt Golf Links, I bike, I go to the beach, I hike and run, I use the tennis courts, I play pickleball there, I use the parks, and I love going to the restaurants and what it has to offer. And I'd like to say I'm willing to spend time and learn whatever I need to ensure its success, and I want to contribute. And this is an area that I found that I felt like I could contribute, using my professional skills to help drive good decisions through its city plan. My past experience has included, I have my MBA, I worked in business, I've owned my own business, I worked in portfolio and project management, and I did real estate for a few years back in California a long, long time ago. But it has given me an interest and an understanding to some extent about land use and neighborhoods and development.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Do you believe that the comprehensive plan as written is still applicable? Does it need to be changed? If so, how?
I do believe it's still applicable, and I don't see any need for any changes in it at this point. I see that it allows for what is immediately needed for current and near-term future. It covers all applicable Oregon planning goals that need to be addressed, and it addresses those specifically the Gerhardt needs regarding people, managing urban development, protecting our natural resources, managing our coastal ocean resources, and it covers them all, I think, at a reasonable level and allows for what the town needs for current state.
Thank you.
Hi, and thank you very much for applying. What are your thoughts for now in the near future for Gerhardt? Please be as specific as possible and address Gerhardt maintaining its residential community feel, or would you prefer additional commercial and tourist growth and how they pertain to the comprehensive plan?
I would like the town to remain a fairly quiet, what I call a Nantucket-like community in its neighborhood. It offers nature-inspired relaxation, opportunities for activity, it encourages community. I would like to see it remain primarily owner-occupied residential with limited rentals. I would like to see it continue to protect its natural resources and focus on decreasing likelihood of natural disasters in the community. I would like to see a lively small downtown area. We have a great infrastructure in place for that. And I believe that we have the provisions in the comprehensive plan to provide for that, for what the town needs. with zoning and parking availability. I wouldn't want it to become a tourist destination, but I would like to see it thrive for the residents that live here.
Thank
I
you.
also just want to note real quick, being that I would be new to this role, I would also want to understand more of what the other residences and owners in Gerhardt would like to see, because I would see myself as in the position in service of the community. So I would just want to say, those are my particular feelings, but I would be here to represent the people.
Well, you led right into my question, which was, how do you see your role as a planning commission member in city government? Do you just describe your understanding of the relationship and interaction between the planning commission and the city council?
Right. And again, I would be learning a little bit about exactly what my role would be, but from what I understand of the role, I would be here to reflect Gerhardt community values, which I just touched on. I would be here to recommend policies in line with their plan and community desires. I would be here to help interpret and apply ordinances, educate the public on what those are, help them make land use decisions, communicating with Gerhardt city staff and elected officials, helping to vision for long-term planning. I would be doing homework on behalf of the city and the city staff, studying other matters relating to planning and development for the city as well as from surrounding areas potentially. And studying subdivision of land, which I think was one of the more recent questions that have come up.
Okay, are you aware of any present or future conflict of interest that you might have as a member of the planning commission? If a situation should arise, would you excuse yourself from voting?
I do not have any conflict of interest, and I do not see any opportunity for one to arise. But if it would, I certainly would be happy to excuse myself from voting. Again, we want what's best for the city.
Thank you.
All right, do you, as a candidate for the planning commission, have a question of any of the members of the city council?
I do have a question. I'm curious how often you get land use variance requests that come in, how often that is, and how you typically address them as far as considering your overall comprehensive plan. Such as, if you saw a number of requests coming in that were very similar, would you take that into consideration then to look at the comprehensive plan and make a decision as to whether it needed to change, given the wants and desires of the community?
I can help answer that.
That would be good,
Yeah.
because
Not many city managers attend all of their planning commission meetings, but because we're a small town, we do. So, no, the variances are not frequent, which is nice.
Yeah.
We've had very few of those, and then you are right on track in regards to the comprehensive plan is the filter to kind of the coffee filter for all those variances. And so we go through that they go through that prior to making any decision.
Great, good to hear. One other question, and I probably could come up with a lot more, but I'll ask one more. That is, I didn't see like a mission and vision to help guide your policies, like written or included in the comprehensive plan. I'm not sure if that's usually applicable, but I'm wondering if you have something in place to help guide that plan from the standpoint of a mission and vision.
So the comprehensive plan is designed to address the state's land use goals. So that's its primary purpose. So like goal 1, which is public participation, and then goal 2, which is coordination between different impacted governments and users. And so the elements that are in the comprehensive plan primarily deal with that. There is a little bit of that vision and values, I think, in the summary. But traditionally, a comprehensive plan has really been more of a land use tool.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
And thank you for the opportunity to apply.
you're welcome. Thank you. All right. I'm just gonna say that there is one seat available. The decision comes down at the end of the city council meeting, and don't feel like you need to stay to hear the choice. If you want to, that's fine. It's just, it's at the end of the meeting, and there is one seat now. I am going to recommend the two gentlemen that are already serving to stay on, because I like consistency and continuity in the planning commission. So, thank you very much for coming, and we're going to open the city council meeting in just 2 minutes. But first, we are going to, because we go right into the council meeting. But before we go any farther, I would like to make an addition to the agenda, and I need consensus. I would like to talk about setting the wage for the new training officer, and I need consensus to add it to the agenda.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay, I agree. So we're going to add it at new business. And at that time, I don't need to discuss what the motion's going to be, do I, Peter? Okay. All right, so, having said that, this is the December 6, 2023 City Council meeting for the city of Gerhart. Is there any conflict of interest?
No.
No? All right. Next on is the approval of the regular meeting, the minutes.
I move that we approve the meeting of the regular meeting of city council for Wednesday, November 1st, 2023.
Second?
Any discussion, corrections? All those in favor?
Gary?
Aye.
What?
Aye.
Christie is interrupting.
Yes, Christie, what did I do?
Nothing. I just wanted to give you a heads up with the microphone situation. It's really terrible online for us here. And so if you could help us out by, when you speak, not looking down at
Sure.
your paper. So for example, hold your paper up so that you're projecting outward. Chat is also recording, so we will have a clear audio, but for right now, we can't make out really anything that's being said.
Great, thanks a lot for telling me now. I appreciate it. All right, so we have a motion. Is there any discussion, any corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes. Go to the work session. This is Monday, October 30th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
I present a motion that we accept the minutes from the work session of the city council Monday, October 30th, 2023.
I'll second that.
All right, there's been a
Wasn't sure.
Thank you.
I will second it.
There's been a second. Is there any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, that passes. Everyone's got a copy of the Planning Commission report. Is there any questions directed at Chad for this?
No, so you said in January? So
Yes,
we'll be
that's the
looking at
plan.
that? Okay, then that's the question and answer.
Anyone else?
Nope.
No other questions? Going to the mayor's report. Very limited report since that's what I do. I've been up to the Connex twice, investigating and moving things. I actually was the man who mopped the ceiling, and I feel better for it. I've had several meetings with some counselors and Justine about issues, and that's all I've got as far as a mayor's report. Since Deborah isn't here, I'll go to Rita.
Well, I was really honored to be invited by Chief Como to be part of the, I shouldn't say interrogation, to talk to the proposed division chief and be a part of the interview process. And it was a learning experience for me. It was on Sunday, and he put out quite the food spread. We'll get that. And there was professional fire and I should EMTs from all over, and it was a real learning experience. And thank you, Chief Como, for that invitation. That's all I
Thanks
have.
for your help.
Okay. Dana.
You want to go? No? Okay. So start off with my shout outs. Shout outs this month go to the citizens who have been decorating downtown for us. Taylor Cosner is responsible for the decorations on City Hall here, and Ellen Pendergast is responsible for the decorations at the crossing on the plants there. So if you see them, tell them thank you. Also, to the Murphys for their Christmas tree. As always, it just doesn't seem like, well, you actually know it's the opening of the holiday season when their Christmas tree goes up. And then also a shout out to the firefighters. I happened to be at Seaside at their Parade of Lights on Broadway, and I got some great video of our Gerhardt firefighters participating in that parade. It was kind of fun. I don't know whose little kid was in the window the whole time, but that was the best part of the whole parade for me.
Wasn't yours.
Yeah. I have
There's a chance.
Yeah. So this month I did not get to the League of Oregon Cities small city meeting down in Rockaway Beach because I was not feeling up to it that day. That was a big migraine day for me. So unfortunately I missed that, but I'm going to be up for the next one. This month I worked with staff on reviewing the employee handbook and recommending some updates, which which are still in process. I interacted with a number of cities citizens and concerns related to the ODFW complaints, and helped guide them as far as who were the appropriate people to lodge their complaints with, or the entities to lodge their complaints with, so that they could see some action on it. And also I talked with some citizens who were concerned about sign issues. They wanted to share their thoughts with me, so I did that. I also attended the Gerhardt Rural Fire District meeting last night and listened to their discussion regarding the contract. And I want to give a couple of reminders since I have you all hostage here. First of all, there was information went out on the blog about the holiday tour of lights, and Justine and I have been going back and forth talking about this. Justine's done a lot of work on this. The city has received a lot of calls about this as far as how can you get on the map, where are the maps. And if you don't know, if you didn't see it on the blog, the Seaside Chamber of Commerce has, along with the grocery outlet, has initiated a holiday tour of lights. I think this is their second year going, where they create a map of the houses in Seaside, and they've also invited Gerhardt to participate, where people have decorated for the holidays, and you could drive around in your car once you get a map and look at all of these. And then there's also a voting process. However, they have not quite worked out how you're going to vote, but there is a voting process, and there will be a prize. And my understanding is that the last date, the winners will be announced on December 21st. So I hope they're going to figure it out pretty quick. They had trouble getting the maps out initially, but I called the grocery outlet today and confirmed that they do have the maps. The maps are just inside the door. And when I spoke to the Chamber of Commerce a couple weeks ago, they said that if you were a late participant and you wanted to add your home and you didn't know about it and you were just now decorating your home and wanted to be added in, they would be updating the maps as they receive new participants. So it's not too late to join in on that if you want. Also, they have some information on their site about chasing down Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Apparently, if you go into grocery outlet, there's a Rudolph there, and there are some clues that you can pick up that will lead you to other points. It's almost like a hunt. Yeah, it's like a scavenger hunt type thing for Rudolph, and it all starts down there. And apparently, some of the clues are hidden here in Gerhardt. And then the last thing I want to do while I have you all hostage on my time is remind everybody of the Widmer Real Estate Share the Warmth drive, where they are looking for new or gently used coats and blankets for adults and children. On the card that they sent out to everybody, they say the deadline was December 20th, but Melissa recently posted something on social media saying the deadline is the 17th. So I would go with the earlier date if you're really interested in participating in that, and I hope you all will.
Sharon?
I too participated in the Connex foray. The Connexes are up at the water tower. They are 3 metal boxes that contained all of the city's emergency supplies and some personal supplies in the barrels through our program. Paulina accompanied me up there, and after we were able to figure out how to get the Connexes open, which took us, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes. Numbers 1 and 3 of the Connexes are in great shape. We just did some tidying up in there. We've made sure the master list fit with what the supplies are that are in them. Number 2 Connex, which is in the middle, is a disaster. It was like a rainforest walking in there. The entire ceiling was covered in droplets of water. Boxes were wet, damp. There's mold growing. So we moved stuff out of there as much as we could. We put some things in the plastic bins to get some of the boxes out of there. We alerted Carrie. Carrie went back up and mopped the ceiling and helped us move some of the heavier stuff. We've still got work to do up there. I don't know what the next step is going to be for the city. Maybe put a second roof on there, maybe put a ceiling. I don't know what Chad's got figured out for that, but it can't stay as it is because it's, we went back up there, we put a desiccant up there, and 2 weeks later we went back up and it was very wet in there again. So that needs to be figured out so that our hard spent money is not going to waste and our supplies aren't getting ruined. Secondly, I attended a meeting with Chad and John Wickersham, who's, I think he's Assistant Director of the Land Conservancy. I think he's Assistant Director of the North Coast Land Conservancy. We met and John went through the Land Conservancy's 5-year strategic plan, which they have not finalized. He went through their draft with us. He is going around talking to all the cities. Gerhardt was the first city that he went to discuss how they can be of service to the cities in the wildlife protection. I would dearly love to, I think they've got a lot of great things to say along those lines. I think they could teach us some things. And I would dearly love to have, once they have the finalized plan written up, I would love to have him come and present it to City Council. Lastly, the elk issue is not dead by any means. We have compiled numerous questions that will be going via probably via a lawyer, to the Fish and Wildlife Commission to get a records request done on all of our questions, because we feel that our questions weren't entirely answered by Paul Atwood. So we're going to continue to pursue that, and I just wanted everybody to know that. That's it.
Okay, I just want to add that the Connex, the middle Connex that has the condensation problem, we moved almost everything into plastic bins and got rid of any cardboard that was up there. So we're not looking at a serious problem with the mold, but we do have mold in 2 places on the roof that we are going to address, and that is ongoing.
As far as corrective action, are we gonna schedule an inspection?
Yeah, that will work with, we'll work on and you do it more frequently, especially because the Connexes weren't expected to do this. As the other 2 are performing just like they're supposed to, the one in the center is not, it's of a different quality. We have an idea of how to fix it, which is gonna be drilling some more ventilation holes. We're looking for some covers to be able to cover those ventilation holes. We're gonna put, and then change everything out in all of them from boxes to plastic. So that'll help in case this happens to the other 2 that are performing well now. But yeah, there's the conversations we have to have. I thought I sent you an email, I think I did, that has some of that information in there with the plan of when we're going to do that.
And I would just, again, I would recommend a
More frequent.
scheduled inspection.
Yeah.
Something that we check the box on bi-weekly, a month, every month, whatever, whatever you guys deem appropriate, but.
Yeah, we've had a Connex at the fire hall for 20 years? Never leaked, never condensated, never nothing. And those other two are doing great. This one's a mystery, but it does indicate that we need to spend some more time keeping an eye on them.
Well, I know that some of the ones we have out here are difficult to open too, which happens in this environment. Yeah.
The reason the middle Connex has got the condensation problem, it's a single layer roof. So if we add something in the neighborhood of a double layer of silicone paint on top, that'll insulate the roof, and that should solve the problem of the heat differential that causes the condensation. After we get rid of the water that's inside. You know, that's my feeling. But we'll go on. City officer reports. Chief Joshua Gregory.
Thank you, Mayor. How's everybody doing? Good evening.
Well,
Just real quick, stats of note. We did have 1 theft win this cycle, this month. Theft 3, a trespass, harassment. We had 6 disturbances, 1 fraud case, 2 motor vehicle accidents. There were 29 traffic infractions and 15 citizen assists. Moving on to Officer Maris. He already started the academy. I don't know if everyone knew he got a early slot like we had hoped for. So that's great news. He will be due for a 2-week holiday break coming up in about 3 weeks. So he'll be back for that, and you'll see him around the office then. His graduation date is now March 29th. We're looking at extending, we're gonna have to continue our FTEP process, the training process in the field. But I've got a projected date of mid-May to have him solo on the road.
is that something we can attend, or is it?
The graduation?
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll get you the information.
I
I'll
appreciate
email all
that.
the information for that.
Thank
We
you.
would love that. I'd love that here. I say he's enjoying it so far. He's got quite
As
a
much as
way.
you can attend, enjoy it.
He's got quite a ways to go. The vehicle upfitting that we just sent the first vehicle to Salem this week. I should be, if everything goes on schedule, picking the first one up and cycling through our next one this Friday, hopefully. So hopefully in about 2 weeks, you'll see all the vehicles upfitted and where they should be. So thank you for that. Lexipol, still working on tiers 1 and 2 with our project manager. We should have a projected end date of those tiers by the end of the year. Then I will move on to me doing it by myself through tiers 3 through 5, and then our procedures manual. So we're looking at, I'm projecting by summer, I should have a lot of that completely done, including a procedure manual, if not starting a particular manual. I completed management training that was required through DPSST. I did my final week 2 weeks ago. Glad that's done. And I won't be able to get that certification until 2 years on the job, but everything else, all the requirements are met, so that's good news. And I've received a lot of compliments on our patches. The new patch is getting a lot of attention and people like it, so I appreciate y'all's input on those as well. That's all I have today.
Great.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
What's the difference between theft 1, 2, and 3?
So theft 1 would be your major theft. It really has to do with dollars. So theft 3 would start from 1 penny essentially to $500, and then 500 to 1,000 would be theft 2, and anything above 1,000 is theft 1. And there's different types of thefts as well, like theft by deception or receiving or mislaid property and things like that.
Thank you.
No problem.
I do have a question, she just reminded me. The trailer that was stolen from down there in November, has that been recovered yet?
That was November stat. That is our theft 1. The victim called me since I had left today, so I saw the voicemail, so I'll be calling back in the morning. There was an attempt to locate put out for that trailer. There's been a lot of legwork done on it. We tried to get video from Jackson's. There was a hiccup there with getting the video. So we're trying to work it, but unfortunately it's not been recovered.
Did it have a lock on it, or was it?
Yeah, it was the trailer itself was locked.
But I mean the hitch, did it have a hitch lock on it? Okay. And I don't know that this is, not for nothing, I don't know if this is a common occurrence, I don't think it is, but I know at least about a year and a half ago, another trailer was stolen from there, so.
It's a big deal around our area.
Okay.
Trailers get stolen quite often. A lot of times they end up in Fort Worth somewhere, or Seattle.
So they just hook them up to a vehicle and just drive
Yeah.
them?
Yes.
So if you have a trailer
Hitch lock.
stored somewhere, put a
Yeah,
hitch
put
lock
it
on.
in the shop or hitch lock for sure.
Hitch lock.
Hitch lock
Hitch
for
lock,
sure.
good
Anything,
quality
not
hitch
just a
lock.
storage, not just a trailer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Chief Joshua Como.
Thank you, Mayor. So I have some numbers and stats for you for November 2023. The month of November, we had a total of 39 incidents for the month, and that broke down with 22 inside the city limits and 13 was in our district. We sent out aid 4 times. 3 was to Seaside, once for a building fire, once for a wildland fire, and 1 time they needed some extra manpower. Went to Astoria once for a building fire as well. And then we received aid only once this last month from Seaside Fire. They got their ambulance up and running with that, and medics was not able to transport our patient with that, so Seaside Fire came with their transport capable state licensed ambulance and transported the patient for us, so we did not have to wait for the long delay of medics advocating for patient care and helping them out with that. How that compares to the previous year, November 22 had 61 calls for the month. And we ended November 22 on calls 659, and this year on 700, so we're 41 calls to date ahead of last year. And then as of today, I think we're 50 calls away from hitting last year's record. So last year was 757, and today we're at 707 with that. We did have the assessment center on Sunday where we interviewed in a very good detail the candidate we have. Our only one candidate made it through up to the assessment day. That came through with very, very good remarks and glowing remarks from all the other panelists. And I had division chiefs and other chiefs throughout the whole county, as well as counselors and stuff there. Thank you for assistance with that and how well that went. Unless there's any questions, that's all I have currently.
No questions? Thank you. All right. We'll go to Master of Month.
The city started receiving our 2023-24 property tax revenue. Information provided by the county shows that the city of Gerhardt's total overall assessed value increased by 4.3%, which is slightly higher than what we put in the budget. We put in 3%. Remember that 4.3 represents an overall growth in Gerhardt's taxing district. It doesn't necessarily represent each individual property value growth rate. So as an individual property, according to the county, most properties increase the mandatory 8%. Don't increase more than that. So there's just been some other growth. There are several factors that can impact growth on property values, such as property improvements and new development, which is happening all over Gerhardt. So, and we have some pretty high property tax values. So when you develop a piece of property that is oceanfront, it does significantly impact our assessed value. So. The county assessor's office said that as of our last tax turnover, current property tax collections are at 88%, which is really good. So that means that they've imposed all the taxes from all the taxing districts, and up to this point, 88% of those property tax have been collected, which means 11% is left, and that's really good right now. I mean, primarily November is the largest month. But people also make payments, so only 11% needs to be made up by June 30, so that's great news. Property tax revenues impact the general fund, the debt service fund, and the road district fund. So those are our 3 funds that affects. The city has also received another state revenue sharing payment, which was higher than anticipated. Hopefully due to our population growth, and enough to pay all revenue share grants awards except one, which will be paid immediately upon receiving our adequate funds, which I'm estimating is going to be around February. This particular awardee also clearly stated on their application that they didn't need they just needed the funds during fiscal year 22, 23, 24. So technically it just would like the funds by June 30th. So we'll be fine there. And as a reminder, next year's grant process will be clearer regarding the release of award funds on our application process. And there will be a discussion with our budget committee regarding distribution dates. That's something we still need to talk about, and I kind of want to formalize and make sure that the applications are a little more clear about when they need the money and when the city can actually release those funds. Because we don't get that money up front. We get it throughout the whole year, and we can't really afford to run that in deficit in case we don't get that money. In January, we'll start advertising for 2 vacant budget committee positions. Although having a financial background is a bonus, there is no financial experience required, just an interest in getting involved in the community, and it really isn't a lengthy time commitment. Maybe the meeting might be long, but overall throughout the year, it's not a big commitment. Members must be 18 years of age, a registered voter, and they must reside within the Gerhardt city limits. And we'll be blogging that out, so watch the blog for more information. I have received the finalized audit documents this week, and we will be coordinating with the auditors to present a summary to the council. So we'll have one of them give a brief presentation. The only immaterial finding was our organizational structure, which is due to our limited size staff. And this is a standard yearly audit comment that we have always gotten. The city has internal controls to address this issue. So we practice things like dual statement verification, audit adjustments that are reviewed by more than one person, monthly STR dual verification, and financial reports that are submitted to the council, and we have a third-party auditor. So we have some other things that are in place because we know we have a small staff and we can't afford to hire more people. Business license renewals were mailed out to our registered businesses just last week. And just a reminder that our business code said that they run from January 1 to December 31st, so we're going with that. It's a brand new application. but there was no changes to the fees, so. Any questions? Yes?
I have a question. When do the franchise fees for Northwest Natural Gas and CenturyLink come in usually?
I'll look, Rita, I should have that. I think we get a one-time payment on them.
Is it usually towards the spring, you know?
I can't remember.
Okay, that's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
That's all right. I just realized that of all of the franchises
Yeah.
that they haven't paid theirs.
I should know that,
All
and
right.
I'm sorry,
Oh, no,
but
that's
I'll get
fine.
that information
Thank
for
you.
you.
Page 3, Pacific Power, street lights. Are we paying them as a contractor?
We have streetlights. That's a line item in our budget. We have to pay for the electricity for our streetlights that are running around town,
Okay,
the power poles.
so that payment is for the electricity then?
Correct.
Okay,
So we get an invoice, and on the bill, if you ever want to see it, each individual streetlight is on that sheet, but it's just one bill, one
Gotcha.
invoice.
was that a stupid question?
No,
It's a good question. And there might be other bills that would be on there. Occasionally, the city will determine that needs a new streetlight.
Who owns the streetlights? Do we or do they?
well, we have to pay for them to put them in, but I believe they own them.
I think she's right.
No.
But we have to pay if we want them.
Okay. Second question, page 6. What is Elon Financial Services?
So Elon Financial is it's the credit card that our company, that we have 2 credit cards. Chad has a credit card and I have a credit card. And so that is a credit card that we use. We have some reoccurring things on the credit card, like some technology things that are monthly payable. And then if we need emergency items that we can't either do a purchase order for, you know, we're doing Amazon or something that we don't have an account with, then we can use the credit card. And then I keep those receipts and reconcile to that.
Okay. Page 26? Really? Yeah, 26. What are we paying Leonard a year?
So this is a particular thing, last month was a very extremely large month for plan reviews. So his bill varies month to month. For example, I wrote a check today for the month of November that was for about $4,400. So it completely depends upon the amount of permits that come in. So what happens is Angelina verifies all of the permits, submits the invoice to me, and then I take that and verify against the revenues we received to make sure that I agree, and then we pay him. He gets 75% of all the permits received.
Okay. I wondered about that.
And
It seemed like a lot.
and the month before I think was really low, so it totally depends on how much we take in.
Page 27, City of Warrenton, the water purchase. Do we purchase water from them every single month of the year?
Well, they're like us, they require a base, so we have to pay a base to have the meter, just like we do, whether you
Right.
use 0 or 10 cons, you still have to pay the $44, dollars.
So that 12,444.
We did purchase just a little bit, I think, because I don't think it's that much per, but we do have to pay a base fee every month.
What's the base fee?
And I'll have to look.
600 and something, I think, is the
On one of
base.
them, we have
$100.
We have 2 meters, we have meter 6 and
So
meter
that's
8.
kind of negligible, but the 12,000,
That would have been for water repurchase,
that's a lot of water.
or at least part of that, a large part of it.
That's pretty, yeah. Okay.
And that was finishing off the dry season there. I think we're now on our own water.
Okay, I'm so sorry, page 31, Sound Earth Strategies for the Chemical Water Analysis. Is that all stuff that's done at the water treatment plant? on an ongoing basis, or?
So I'm not exactly sure the process, but Sound Earth is a company that we've used. We did an RFP for them because it's a pretty large amount of money every year. They tend to bill quarterly, so you don't see them every month. But we did do an RFP, and they were the only ones that bid, but they also have a historical reference with us that we've used in the past. And so they help us and do studies, but I'm not exactly sure.
We're
Mark
working on
would
a really
have to-
comprehensive report right at this moment. We just finished the draft, and it has all of the water chemical analyzation, has the performance of the aquifer, and it monitors. And we send all of this information to the state every year. This year, as of all the years before, it appears as though that our system is working wonderfully, that it is working as designed, with no issues that we are worried about with WRD. So that report will be coming out here probably in about 2 weeks, and
I don't think that
get
they
you a copy.
study they don't study the composition of the water. They study how we have a permit with the state so that we can use so much water. I think they study flows.
It flows and salinity as well, because we're making sure we're not,
Salinity,
yeah.
But I don't think that they're not doing, we use a company out of Portland that does like, the
Chemical
arson, yes.
Gotcha. So this charge dated November 8th, which was substantial, is that because of just the study and the circumstances?
That's putting this water report together for us.
Yeah, so it's not like, we don't do this on a regular basis,
Every year,
once a year.
once a year.
Okay.
Well, it's about $60,000.
Total.
They just bill us quarterly.
Mhm.
And they bill us each one of those line items. I separate them out, even though it's one invoice, I separate them out because they're for 3 different types of services they provide.
Yeah,
Just so that when I pull up this invoice, I can see more than what you guys see. You know, I just have more invoice notes or something, so that's why you see 3 lines. It'll be for 3 different, like Chris Hyatt will be one of these. He's one of their subcontractor professionals and he would be on there and his time would be on there.
last question, State Forester, what service do they provide for us?
We have to pay them every year to provide fire service for property that's outside, so like the water tower. They provide not a rural fire because we still would respond, but we have to pay them to do, because it's in their area. So we have to pay.
So they're evaluating the fire?
No, they're monitoring.
It's a fee for fire protection.
Oh,
So that when and if there is a fire, they will come and protect that particular property. We pay a fee because we own those 2 pieces of property that are outside the city of Gearhart, which is in their jurisdiction, so we pay that.
great, thank you very much, sorry.
No, that's okay. We get an invoice for it every year.
All right, moving on. Peter Watts.
So I attended the Portland State Population Projection meeting earlier this month. It was for the counties of Clatsop, Columbia, and all the cities in those counties, as well as the cities that were not part of Metro. So the Clackamas County cities that aren't in Metro and the county overall. There were only 2 of us that were there in person, which was surprising to me. And the 2 Portland State staffers that are putting together the information, neither of them had worked on the prior population studies. So I pointed out to them that they were dramatically wrong in their projections. And they said, well, can't you just do another one? And I said, it costs $500,000. So the accuracy of your projections is really important, so that we know that we have a buildable lands inventory and a housing needs analysis. They are still working on their numbers. I gave them, I gave them the information for what they had projected and what the actual numbers were for all the cities in Clatsop County. and they were off by by a factor of 4 to like a factor of 10. With the exception of Cannon Beach, they had significantly overestimated Cannon Beach's population. And I just think that's because of the number of vacation rentals in Cannon Beach. I was there a couple months ago and couldn't believe it. So Cannon Beach lost population, but everyone else gained it dramatically. And then again, the number of homes that are primary homes went up by 5%. So I think that, and I told them I think that trend's going to continue as more people retire, they're going to leave the Portland metro area and their homes in Gearhart are going to become their primary homes, and that's going to impact our all of our services and the services we're expected to provide. And I think that's why we're seeing the fire calls and everything going up. It's just there are more people here, there are more houses being built, and also explain to them that an acute shortage of housing makes it so the hospital can't get employees, and it makes it tough to hire police officers and firefighters and first responders, and so I think the good news is they were really receptive to that information. They presented their data in a way that I think was not entirely clear, and so they've now, instead of looking at a 10 and 20 year timeline, they're looking at like 40 years. And so, I explained to them, we're required to have a 20-year buildable lands inventory. The county takes a comprehensive look at that. So we really need your population projections for that 10 and 20-year period. And Chad and I have talked about, he's gathered the data for the amount of growth that we've experienced in years. The first 3 years, so 20 to 23, and if we continue with those numbers, we're going to have a population increase by around 29%. So we're talking about a really significant percentage compared to what has been projected in the past, which is something like 6%. And so again, I just think that we don't have the land. Gearhart doesn't have the land to accommodate this type of growth. And so, but we're getting that growth now. So other cities in the county are going to have to take that growth. But with these artificially low population numbers, they're not going to be able to do a UGB expansion, and they're not going to be able to do a rezone. And so that's how you deal with growth under state law. This is all driven by state law. So to do a rezone, you need that. You need those accurate population projections, and you need the accurate buildable lands inventory. So it's just, I talked to them after the meeting, and I was just told them how critically important really all this is for people to continue living here as people age and as younger people move and they're doing this service sort of jobs. So I'll be continuing to track that process pretty closely. They're going to have kind of final numbers to present in March, where they're going to have to adopt those numbers, and so there'll be I think opportunities for advocacy. I do think there were other people from Clatsop County that were on the phone call. I think there was somebody from the county on the phone call. But just getting word out on this, it's so under the radar, and but it has just such a significant impact, because we're only going to get the grant funds to do this sort of buildable lands inventory and housing needs analysis like once every 10 years. So if they're not, they were so off that we're getting a new opportunity, but we can't use any of the prior work. We might be able to use some because we had ground truthed their numbers, but other cities didn't go through that process. I drafted some temporary sign ordinance that we'll be discussing, dealing with political signs. One of the things that Chad and I have talked about is as long as we're talking about temporary signs, these are specifically political in nature, but it might make sense to do another temporary sign that deals with like holiday signage. So I can either draft that separately and bring it back, or I can tack that onto this. And we can do it all at once. I'm open to either. I've looked at a lot of the what cities in Oregon have done outside of Oregon regarding the political signs, because it's federally protected speech. But also took a look at what some people have done with the temporary signs, and I don't think it'll be that hard to integrate that. And it'll primarily be the city putting those signs on in city right of way, I would expect. So we can talk about all that later, though, when we talk about political signs.
I have a question.
I do too.
Okay.
What do you mean by holiday signs?
Well, like if there's 4th of July, and if there's 4th of July and we have parades and things of that nature, or please clean up, those sort of cleanup signs that we're doing, technically those are temporary signs.
Fireworks.
So you're not saying like for holiday signs like Merry Christmas or anything like that?
No.
Okay, just wondering.
I also have a question. Why is Portland State doing this population projection for us? Have they been appointed to do that?
Yeah, so the state legislation states that Portland State is the entity that does the population projections.
Is the state legislation aware that they?
I have made multiple electeds aware of. This is something that when Senator Johnson was the senator for Clatsop County, that we had a lot of discussions about. And when I had a meeting with her, the woman that filled the rest of Senator Johnson's term, and she is at Reed College and actually had one of the Reed students put together a spreadsheet of the differences between the things. So, and I believe her, Senator Armitage, I believe was her. So yeah, people are aware. And one of the points I've made is that for a lot of communities, the US Census provides population estimates. So, that's kind of considered the gold standard. But yeah, it's the state law specifies Portland State.
Do we pay Portland State for this?
The state of Oregon pays Portland State.
So the city of Gerhardt doesn't pay?
I don't believe so.
No,
I mean, we pay indirectly through taxes, but
Right.
no.
And all of the state apportionments, the cigarette tax, all of those taxes are based off of the division of population based on this. It's in their document. They list this document as the reference document.
So our share of gas tax isn't how much gas is sold in Gerhardt. It's based off of Portland State's population estimate for Gerhardt.
So cigarettes.
And that's true of
gas.
cigarettes, it's true of alcohol, it's true of,
Wait, so you're saying all those estimates are based off of faulty projections?
well, there's some cities where it's been very accurately
Okay.
estimated.
But for us?
The Oregon coast in particular has been dramatically off. The city of Portland has been dramatically over what their actual population is. And interestingly enough, in a lot of counties, the county that has like the earliest letter in the alphabet is slightly over, and then a lot of the other cities are under, and I don't know why that is, but like in Washington County, Banks was, I think, over, and then all these other cities are under. So if you just spot check it by looking at the city that's first in, then it's I don't know, it's something that I've been aware of and concerned about and talked about the cities I represent for a while, and until we got the 2020 census, it was like impossible to prove. But I hope that their numbers are more accurate in the future.
And Peter's keeping an eye on them now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Let's move on. Chad?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So code enforcement's going fairly okay. We've got a couple of issues that are gonna end up in court, because people, are not taking care of things like they're supposed to, but most are, which is great. We have the Christmas tree, it was gonna go up this week, but it got a little windy, so it should be coming up here pretty quick. I'm excited for the guys to go see, get that done. We have done a little bit of training, I have, on the new meters that we've installed around town, and this is part of an AMI metering project that we're working with to see what the benefits of automated metering infrastructure would be for the city of Deerheart. And so far, it's pretty neat. We can see minute by minute what people are using as far as water on the commercial meters that we have installed, and it has been helpful to look at that for leak detection. So the benefits of that is leak detection, faster response to our customers, less leaking because we'll catch it quicker, and also potentially that the system and the software will start talking to each other. The water treatment facility will say, hey, I made this much water today. The software system will say, hey, we saw this much come in, and wait a minute, there's a difference. We need to alert somebody. So there's some pretty neat things as far as water conservation goes. It's an expensive project, so we're looking at it very carefully, and I'll let you know more as I know more. Attended lots of meetings around town. Some of you have talked about those. We're doing some asbestos testing at the fire station just to verify that situation. I did, and as you saw in your packet, I had to decline a grant. And it was for the ODOT sidewalk program. We had been awarded that grant based on some old figures that we used kind of during and before COVID. So it just wasn't enough for us to complete the project was the first hurdle. The second hurdle was actually getting people to come in and want to bid on the work. We didn't get any bids on the work that we did. I talked to a few of the concrete folks around here, and concrete seems to be taking quite a hit. Larger groups are much smaller these days. We've lost a couple of our concrete contractors. And so I submitted that letter to Oregon Department of Transportation, and they acknowledged it, and then they said, please apply again next time because you were one of the top scored grants. So we will be doing that again. On the grant side, we have gotten that. I think we talked about this last time, but we did receive a grant for the emergency power supply up at the water reservoir. So we'll be starting that project soon. We just were notified that we received one grant, 2 projects for our computer system and software and security. And we're working on another grant with our insurance company to help the police department, but we haven't gotten through that one yet. But it's looking pretty good if I know the people who are working on it. Then just also a reminder, we've got work sessions set up Tuesday, December 12th at 6:30. And that's what I have for my update as of now.
Question?
Sure.
Sorry.
That's
The emergency power supply up at the water tower, what's that gonna look like?
It's gonna look like a standalone diesel generator that will go up there and it will auto start when a power outage goes. That will provide us with information from the water reservoir and the water levels up there. It will also provide us with backup power for the ham shack that we have up there, emergency power, and eventually probably some power into those connexes, but we're gonna have to look and see how that's gonna work. But that's what that'll do. And we'll be able to take this unit and move it to anywhere in the community if we need it as well. It'll be on wheels.
It's on wheels?
It is. We'll jack it up off the wheels during, its long-term storage, but it should work pretty well. We did try to go for solar, Counselor, but they said that that's just not the reliable situation for that particular situation, so they helped us and we went a different direction. Any other questions for me?
Okay. Move on to visitors. Rita.
Hi. I want to say why we're taking up your time with the bench committee again. So I will tell you, the bench committee has gone as far as they can. Before proceeding, we need consensus from the city council to proceed farther. So the bench committee consists of Councilor Sharon Klepper and Kathy Zimmerman and I. We have done a complete inventory of the current benches, locations with the plaques and their locations. The current benches were placed by the Gearhart Homeowners Association, and although there is no record of their still maintaining a presence in that, it was presumed there was a handshake deal that the city would take over those benches as well. So Mrs. Zimmerman went on a road trip down the coast to other cities to look at their benches, and she's reported back. She's taken pictures of those. And we've also, as a committee, gone to the downtown benches and looked and see what they look like and what they need. So we like the current dune benches, and we tried to get those replicated, but the gentleman who put those benches out no longer has the
forms.
The forms
were lost.
And he died, so we couldn't replicate those. So we tried to get, like I said, we tried to get those replicated. We couldn't, so we've got a replacement look, so to speak. We've pinpointed some proposed locations, and Chad has that map. We've given him the map, and I think he's prepared some for us. Are they here?
They are right there, ma'am.
Oh my goodness. Well, this isn't it.
Yeah, it's the whole package.
Oh, it is the whole package. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Chad. So, have to see what-
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to describe
I'll
that
just
to
pass
you.
this down because I already know what it looks like.
There's 8 copies there for you if you'd like.
Thank you. Thank you. So, we had about 24, 25 people on a waiting list for benches. So we tried to pinpoint that many new locations that will,
More maps.
oh, there are, I get it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Sorry
you.
to interrupt you.
No, no.
That was for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jack. Let me see, so we got about 24 new locations for the proposed benches and the proposed people that are waiting. We prepared an order form and a bench policy to be put out. There are some things that we could not do that the city hall will have to do, like when somebody purchased a bench, the asking price for a bench, and Chad will work that up. In our policy, we decided that if someone purchased a bench with a plaque, that the amount that they pay will cover 10 years of upkeep and replacement and maintenance of the benches, and then after that, they would have a chance to renew. So we kind of wondered about wood versus recycled plastic, which is called Polywood, thank you. And it's true, the mayor said that he likes the way the wooden bench looks. And I agree, the wooden bench looks really good. And they come in other colors, and the one that the chiefs are sitting in comes in a wooden, I mean, it's an ugly gray, yes. Thank you, Vanna.
Can you lay down on it?
The chief's bench comes in another color that is a wood look, and so I think that would be more amenable to the community. So why we chose the recycled plastic is it never needs painting, it's water resistant, it's maintenance-free, it's easy to assemble, and Chad will say, because he assembled the benches, that was pretty easy. I'm
Yeah.
looking at you.
After I looked at the instructions, yes ma'am.
Okay. And it's guaranteed against breakage for 50 years, and all of the plastic is recycled plastic. So, then the last thing that we did is we called all the people on the waiting list to see if they were still interested. It had been years since some of them had been on the waiting list, and we got a really good response. And I'm sure Sharon will correct me on anything I've said, because, you know, oh, you never know, I might have said something wrong, I don't know. So we're here as a committee to see if the council will approve us going forward and allowing Chad to do his magic that he does so well. And that's it.
And what's this magic?
His magic is to print out the order forms
Oh.
and to come up with a plan and the money and the plaques. He's just doing this magic.
Yeah, I'd like to do a little bit more work with you, but we've gone a long way. And based on the information that was provided from the group, we put these maps together. So thank you very much to Mrs. Zimmerman for that and the group that did it. We have a few things to take care of. We've still got some work to do with the county, or the state. The state has a rule, there's the oceanfront building line, nothing shall be built past the oceanfront building line. That includes concrete and benches, so we're working with them on this. They also have a concern with having memorial benches out there. It's a policy that they don't necessarily adapt to, because where do you start and where do you stop? They are in charge of all the parks in Oregon, and so we're gonna have to do some work with that. Then sitting down, and now that we have the price, and once the committee decides on a type of bench, we can put also the policy, get that done completely. We have all the costs set up, so I think we're ready to sit down as a group and do a lot of work and get this thing put together so that the council can make a decision based on the type of benches that the group wants to have, where to place the benches, any additional benches that might need to be placed, and then what the budget for that would be.
So do you have a recommendation on what the bench policy people should do next, or do we just wait for you?
I think we should sit down and talk about it.
Okay.
Because you did a lot of the work already. It was pretty well done.
Well, Mrs. Zimmerman did a lot of the work. She did a lot of the work.
It's good.
And Sharon did a lot of work as well.
Can I just add something? We called all those people, we split the list of, I don't know, 24, however many people, into 3, and we called them all and said, are you still interested? And we got a very enthusiastic response. Second thing I want to add is the bench that the chiefs are sitting in would only be for the downtown benches. The more robust bench would be for the outlying areas, because I think it's more robust. I mean,
Yes, and the bench that nobody's sitting on, we'd like to see in the dunes.
That's what, yeah. I think.
Yeah, and I would like to keep that grade, because that would blend in with the other benches that are already there. So, but this one, the chief's benches should be brown, I think.
So you don't want the wood one?
Well, it's up to the city council. I like the way the wood one looks. It's just that it needs more maintenance and upkeep.
Right.
No, that's not. My rationale for not having the wood one is, why would we as a city want to cut down a bunch of trees to make our benches? That was my rationale.
And it's true, when we looked at the benches downtown, some of them needed some work. That one in front of Pacific Way was pretty scary.
So we're not looking at an either or, we're looking at
Yeah.
both of these what's the arrival time from the time that we order to, because I have had people ask me how soon we could get these out, and if we could at least have them out by spring, summer.
Well, I think that there's a couple things that we've got to talk about. Number one, none of the people on the list were guaranteed a bench.
Right.
They were told that if a bench position became available, then in order of the request, we would give them a call. So now we're looking at potentially adding benches for all of those folks. And so we've got 20-some benches to approve the placement of as well. Once we get these things kind of established, determine where the benches are gonna go, what are we gonna replace, what color they're going to be, then with the ordering of this group, they're both very good companies and they'll be here quite quickly. They don't take much time. We can even get, we've negotiated some reduced costs on some of these as well if we buy in bulk, so that's a factor. I put the high-end approximate price on both those sheets, and those prices are subject to change as everything has been since the pandemic. So we've got a few things to work out yet. as far as
But
placement
the
order.
people on the list are gonna pay for their bench, right?
Correct.
So
That's the
the
idea.
city's not footing the bill for this.
No, they're not.
Just just
They're
the cost
gonna-
of installation, the hourly cost of
And
installation,
annual-
will we get volunteers?
Annual maintenance, which to
Annual
me meant
maintenance.
once a year they go out and hose them off or whatever they do.
Yeah.
Now, are we gonna set these in concrete so that they don't, we don't have to run them down?
The beach benches would need to be in concrete, yeah. The other benches that we previously installed, well, that were installed previously, are very, very heavy. They're like 1,400 pounds, it seems like. These will need to be put onto concrete. And then also in the quote, you'll see that there's some, I think $75 to actually secure the bench to the ground. And that can be done in asphalt and concrete. On the beach, we're gonna have to pour pad and then put the bench and secure the bench, and that's one of the issues beyond the oceanfront building.
Are you gonna charge the individuals for the pad as well?
Yes.
So what's our timeline goal on this?
Gonna have to get the group together and put together the policy and then get an approval from the city council to place the benches in the locations you wanna place them.
So did you get a chance to look over the policy that we
Mhm.
submitted?
It's really good. I think we just need to meet like on a couple of the things, but it's
Okay.
like 80% there, I think.
It's gold.
It's good.
So is it something we could maybe talk about again in January? February?
February would be better,
Okay.
looking at the projects that we've got going on, but we're gonna keep, we need to meet in January about this, as far as the bench committee.
And I'd like just to put it out there, I'd also like just a brief discussion, I haven't talked to Chad about it. If Rita's saying it's a 10-year commitment, so they're going to write us like an $8,000 check or whatever
Oh,
it
it can't
is.
be that much.
Well, whatever it is, is that going to be put in a special revenue fund? Because now we're going to have
Right.
to keep that fund for 10 years. I mean,
I
it's,
understand.
if we put it in the general fund, it's gonna be very difficult to track and,
It should be under the Parks Committee fund. Is there such a fund? I don't,
well,
Think-
that's in the general fund, it
Yeah.
doesn't have a special revenue fund, so we might wanna think about,
I'd like to see it. be
because it's a
special fund.
long-term
Yeah.
fund, that it might be considered, it would be it would be way more transparent
Yes,
and not merged in
Yes.
with other things. It
I
would be very clear, and if that fund was becoming financially unstable, then the budget committee and the council then would have to decide whether transferring funds
I
to
agree.
support it would be. I think we should consider that
I think that would be really
in
wise.
the process.
And I have to say that I kind of cheated and copied a lot of what Seaside has done with their benches on the prom. And in Seaside, you pay a fee for your bench and a plaque. And you pay your initial fee, then after 10 years, you can renew your bench. But if you don't want to renew it, we give them their plaque and we sell the bench to somebody else. So that might be something we want to talk about too. I just thought that was so smart, and that's why I copied it, but I do have to admit, that's what I did. That's it.
Thank you for
But when you
your
see
work.
the water ordinance, you'll see that we copied a lot of people.
Oh, okay.
That it?
Unless Sharon has anything else to say?
Thank you for your
Thanks,
work on
Rita.
that. Thank you, guys.
Great. So is that bench on the chief's bench
Mm-hmm.
gonna look like the bench behind it?
It will look like that, only be brown.
Like the one behind it?
Yes, only it will not be wood. It will
Right.
be brown.
It will be that color brown?
A little darker.
A little dark. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Moving on. Public communication, written and oral. Anyone wishing to address the city council concerning items of interest not on the agenda may do so at this time. All remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Requests to comment electronically must be submitted by email to the city recorder at info@cityofgerhart.com no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. In-person attendees wishing to speak are required to sign in prior to the meeting. Pat Roberts.
Mr. Roberts, 366 North Ocean Avenue. And I have a question. There's been some movement of vegetation out beyond the road where the wells are, so to the west, and from Pacific Way north, clear up to where it becomes Neocoxy, which is what, about 8? And I had to tell you, it was really something. There's a bulldozer out there, and I think it was Mark running it. I couldn't tell, it was raining so hard. But anyway, I took my dogs out for a walk Monday and saw this, and I was just, what's going on? It's sort of similar to the mowing that was done south of Pacific Way, but not quite. The Scotch broom, which I think is the reason for it, is all chopped up and everywhere. And in some areas, it goes clear out to the state line. In other areas, it's just along the road. And
This is a bulldozer?
a bulldozer, and I don't know how they were doing it. I'm just saying, there was a bulldozer. I only saw the bulldozer, and I think that things were picked up because they've been storing cut Scotch broom by Jeff Miller's house for 8 years, and a lot of it was gone. So that was really great to see, and they cleared another area. So I'm assuming that the reason for it was control of Scotch broom, but there's no information. And I asked 2 or 3 of my other neighbors, we're all right next to it, no one knew anything about it. So I'm just saying, where do I look? Was I completely blind? Because I don't want to put out information that isn't correct, so could you please help me? Where do I go to get information that I can relay to people? Because they're going to say, you're the one that lives down here all the time, what's going on? That's, that's what happens. And I've already been contacted by 2 people.
Well, I can tell you, I have no idea what you're talking about. So this
I'll
is
show you pictures, I can look.
I would love to look, but it's the simple fact that, what is going on?
It's not a bulldozer.
What is it? What is that?
There's 2 different projects that we were working on. Number 1, we had a larger tractor down to work on the wells, as we had well number 5 was giving us some trouble. So we've been doing some work down there, but that's separate than this. This is part of the Scotch broom reduction that we do. We do it about once a year. We should be doing it about twice a year, but we're doing it once. And it was a project, we've been working on a permit with Justin Day with Quality Tree, and his bid came in lowest for the work, and he's cutting the beach grass Scotch broom patches out and down as we had on the south end. So he called me a couple days ago. We had already worked on the permit. We were expecting him starting next month, but he had some extra time heading up, so I didn't get a chance to communicate it out. But this is Scotch broom reduction removal.
My apologies to Mark. He looked similar.
Yeah, 2 different projects that were out there, and it wasn't a bulldozer. It was a tractor with a
It's
flail
a
mower on
big
the
yellow
back.
thing that has a scoop and it runs around.
The flail mower on the back that's on there.
Okay.
So that's what's happening.
Yeah, I had no idea that they had started mowing again, so.
Yeah, it was a last minute call.
So can something be put on the blog to that
Sure.
effect?
100%.
I mean, it would really be helpful so people, if you don't provide them information, they're more than happy to make it
Make
up.
up the.
Yeah, well, if I knew about it, I would have put it on, but it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's just like,
But it was Monday during all that rain.
right.
Yeah, he called me Monday morning and asked if he could do it, so we didn't have a lot of time to get the information out, but haven't since gotten any information out either, so we'll do a better job with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
thank you,
it?
Pat.
That's all.
Okay, great. Jeff Hoffman, are you on?
I do not see a Jeff Hoffman.
Okay, well, with that, we're going to close public comment and go to the written comment section. Everyone's got the written comments, the letters.
Yes.
Is there any comments that anyone wants to make? Sharon?
No, thanks.
Dana?
No.
No.
No. Okay, moving on.
The only comment I would make about those written comments is thank you for commenting.
Yes, well, thank you. It's nice to have some kind of information coming from the public. No late correspondence? Was there? Are you talking about the one from the North Coast Land Conservancy?
Land Conservancy was one. Josh Como's letter was another.
Under business.
Okay. And
There's 3 there though.
Right, this one is,
Something from Tom T, something from Land Coast, and something
Yeah.
from Statewide Investments. No,
oh, it was,
no, that was your letter to them about the ODOT grant.
That is the late correspondence, those 3.
okay.
Those 3 documents.
So I'm just going to move on. If anyone's got any comments, please speak up now. All right. Hearing no comments. We're going to move on to ordinance and resolutions. An ordinance regulating the operation of the water system of the city of Gearhart, governing responsibilities, establishing fees, and providing penalties for violations thereof. Chad, will you read the synopsis?
I will. I'll read the first paragraph of the synopsis and then we can go through the rest here in a little bit. Gearhart's outdated water ordinance contained inconsistencies due to repealed and updated sections. With many listed fees deemed unrealistic and associated costs, when adjusting water rates, the decision was made to repeal the entire ordinance and its revisions, opting for a fresh start with a new one, maintaining separate rates. The repeal, along with August's water rate increase, received council approval. The attached draft ordinance 940 outlines fees and policies considered fair and relevant by the staff. Your options here are to approve the ordinance, reading once by title only, make changes, motion to approve as amended, or take another action as desired by council, including nothing. Recommendation that staff recommends that the council move with ordinance 940. Legal analysis is there. The ordinance, if it were to go into effect, would be read once tonight, once next month, and then 30 days later become ordinance. And financial analysis, and that's part of the reason that we wanted to redo this ordinance, to make sure that we were charging for the things that we needed to be charging for. Essentially, this ordinance helps us run the water system safely and effectively, and while doing it efficiently. This helps us bring in some fees for things that we do now, we don't charge fees for, but are taking a lot of time. We have had an old fee schedule and an old ordinance that was antiquated. It was difficult to use and we weren't using it effectively. So the team and I put this together and we've met over it many times. Justine and Christy are the ones that do the most work with the public on these, in this realm. So I'm going to rely on them a little bit tonight to answer some of the questions that you might have. But we feel good about this ordinance and the way that it was putting together, and wanted to know from you how you wanted to go through it, or if you just want to start with questions. And that would be, I guess, for you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions? You're asking for questions about this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have some recommendations and questions, so I don't know if now's the appropriate time or if we should wait until after there's a motion.
There's a motion and then we'll go to discussion and that would be the time.
Yeah.
All right. So if I got a motion in a second, then we can go to discussion.
I make a motion to approve after we make changes, and that we then make a motion to approve the amended.
I'll second.
Okay.
You understand? Do I need to reword that?
Yes, we're making one motion and not two motions at once. So just make a motion to approve.
Maybe you should state the amendments that you think should be made, and then you can staff can note those, and then you can make a motion of the ordinance as amended. And then discussion can happen based off of your amendments as well as what's in here now.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to start?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Starting on page number 3, and again, this goes to the credit of Mr. Tees, who wrote in his thoughts on this, and some of the suggestions I agree with. But prior to that, let's start with section 5, meters. Go down to fourth line down, and where it says the meter will be immediately replaced by the city water department. Remember that we're making rules that we have to live by, and are we really going to be able to, in all instances, immediately go out and do this, or should we give ourselves a little bit of an out, or a little bit of flexibility, and include in there, or as soon as practical?
Well, you can just cross out immediately, and
Yeah.
and then that would suffice, I
Right.
think.
Well, we do want to leave in there the fact that this is something that the city considers an urgent repair,
Yes.
and won't be, we're not going to give ourselves 6 months to do it, but if there are a whole bunch of, let's say we get a batch of bad meters and they all go bad, we'll do it as soon as, it'll be something that we repair on an urgent basis.
I think scratching out immediately is okay.
Okay. So there's that, and then the next one, this is where I want to give the credit to Tom for bringing it to our attention. Okay, the average, so line number 3 of that same section, section 5, line number 3, shall be charged on the basis of the average metered consumption for the 4 months preceding the failure of the meter. Well, if my meter fails in November, guess what? The 4 months that you're going to be looking at are going to be, summer months when I'm probably using a lot more water. So I don't think that's fair to me. I like his suggestion of, the
2 months
average
before,
4 months
2
of the
months
average year, the 4 average months, or maybe take the 2 highest months and the 2 lowest months. I don't know. But maybe somehow you got to figure it out to where it's more appropriate and we're not charging people more than they would have actually used.
So just based on my limited 2 years of experience, and Christy's welcome to chime in, but when a meter is traditionally not working correctly, it's not reading at all. So really, to me, it's a moot point, because like people would catch their meter wasn't working, they were reading 7 consumption units forever, like they never changed.
Okay.
So it really wouldn't matter, because they were paying that anyway, you know what I mean?
Okay.
So that, I haven't seen one where the meter was,
But we have to, when we're making hard, fast rules that we have to abide by, we have to allow for the possibility of that.
right.
So,
You could use the prior year month or the 2 months preceding,
yeah,
and you could even say whichever is lower. So that
there you go. I like that.
How is our system working now? We have had to make adjustments.
But when the meter's not working, like I said, normally they haven't been paying, they've been paying the base. And then the next bill, they wanna kill us because it's
Been
now
filed.
reading 20 cons where it read 0 cons forever.
And then, so we make adjustments, and we go through and we take an average, and we base that average on, no, that's for, that's gonna be for water.
Wait.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I like the previous year's month. So if it goes bad in November, go to last November and see what they paid.
And we do look back a lot of
Yeah.
patterns, and that's not an uncommon thing.
Okay.
That's
But,
not gonna encapsulate a new lawn.
Yeah, that's true.
So either way, we could do the 2 months previous, the 2 months after that period. I don't think it really matters that it's the 4 months previous to this date. It could be the 4 months that encapsulates that date. So the 2 months before, the 2 months after, feels like it would work.
Okay, yeah. That seems more fair to me.
Okay, so then, sewage charge on the basis of average meter consumption for 2 months prior and 2 months post, okay. Almost 2 months.
If you got a meter that isn't working, how do you get 2 months post? Because then all of a sudden you've got a working meter and you're gonna use that?
No, usually it'll stick because they're manual and they'll stick on a number.
Right, but then how do you get 2 months to average those 4 months?
That would be previous bills.
So we should
Yeah.
put previous cycles instead of months.
And then
That's
it would be
right,
the year
'cause we wouldn't-
before
Yeah,
or
okay.
afterwards, so we would do some digging. But I think the 2 months prior and the 2 months after and then averaging it off that would work.
So that's just one billing cycle. So one billing cycle prior and one billing cycle after. That's the way that would read.
Correct.
Yeah. Got it.
Okay.
Okay. Then moving on to page 4, section 7. Where it says, when water is discovered as being wasted due to leaking, but I don't like the wording of this, it's very awkward and confusing to me, but I get what you're trying to say. Basically what you're trying to say is, when the city becomes aware that water is being lost due to leaking pipes, defective fixtures, or other, it says the water shall be shut off and the owner and or consumer notified. I have 2 concerns. Number 1, if it's just my toilet that's running and you come out and shut off my water and I'm an out-of-towner, that may negatively affect my septic system and everybody else in the neighborhood. So I think that we should remove shall and replace it with may, allowing us to make a reasonable decision based on the information. So it's not a requirement, but it's we can. And then again, getting back to the septic, if you turn off my water, I need to know about it as soon as possible so I can fix it. And there's no time limit, there's nothing in there that says immediately, so I would like to, that's where I'd like to insert the word immediately or as soon as practical. And I want to know, how are we going to notify them? I think we have to make some really strong attempts to make sure that they are aware of it, whether we leave a flyer on the door and also advise them by the same way that we notify them of their bill, whether it's through mail or by email or both. But it could be, you know, when you're on a septic system, it can be a real issue when you turn off somebody's water. And again, like I said, I like may because it allows us to make, you know, good common sense decisions.
So we could say when the city becomes aware of leaking pipes, defective fixtures, or other, the water may be shut off and the owner and consumer notified.
Okay, and do we need to clarify that we're talking about on private property? That's also very ambiguous here. So when the city becomes aware that water is being lost on private property, due to blah, 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 blah.
This whole thing is set up to where we have our customers and the city, and this would encapsulate any customer, whether it be owner, leasee, or renter. So I can see making the changes as water is discovered, fixtures or other, the water may be shut off, and then the consumer notified as soon as possible. The water will be turned on by the city's water department on notification of the deficiency. You so add on public property somewhere in here?
Well, what I'm saying
Or
is,
private
we're talking
property.
about, we're talking about, this is specifically, we're talking about private property here, right?
Talking to anybody who'd have a water service with us.
Okay, that's,
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll
but you know,
withdraw
the
mine.
truth is that there's really not anything that's not on private property.
Right.
And that the public stuff is the fire station, so.
Yeah. I guess my concern was that it was implied, but I think that it's, the implication is strong enough that we
Okay.
understand what we're talking about.
The other two changes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, section 8. The water may at any time be shut off from the mains without notice for repairs or other blah, 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 blah. I think we need to clarify who can do that, and that it's only the city. The city may shut the water off from the mains without notice.
Okay.
And then this is just a little grammar thing, but down there, you're using and therefore as an interrupter, so there should be a comma before and after that little portion of the sentence. I'm sorry, that was back, the bottom line of section 8. You need a couple commas in there. Premises with a shut-off valve installed at the dwelling unit, comma, and therefore not needing meter shut-off assistance, comma, are exempt from fees.
Okay, it's a good catch.
And then on this page 5. Section 11. Again, this goes back to clarifying who's going to be, so I think, let me take a look at my notes. It shall be unlawful for any person to injure, destroy, or interfere with any water main, water pipe, service box, hydrant, or other accessories of the water system. So we're saying an absolute, that it's unlawful for any person to interfere with any water main, and we're gonna have to interfere with the water main to do some corrections, so I think that we should give ourselves an out by any person not authorized by the Public Works Director or his designee.
Do that for after unlawful for any person.
Any person not authorized by the Public Works Director or his designee.
Okay.
Okay, and then upon completion of construction, all such water mains and appurtenances, that's a lot of vowels and consonants, but anyway, that word, shall be replaced in an approved manner, and the streets and sidewalks shall be restored as nearly as possible to their former condition. And again, we have to direct who's going to do that, who's responsible for doing that. It's not clear who's responsible for doing that, so is that gonna be by them, by us? I'm assuming we're saying if they mess with it, they fix it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but
So-
there's gonna be times to where we're going to fix it as well, and then tell them that, you know, no, stay away, this is our job, and then we'll bill them for it later.
Okay, so do we say at the direction of the Public Works Director or his designee? But I'm thinking if I'm a contractor and it doesn't clearly state that I have to do it, I'm gonna be like,
We could say paid for by the property owner.
there you go. Okay, moving on to section 12, special uses. For other uses or service not herein mentioned, water, I would change will to may. Because if you say it will be furnished by special contract, it obligates us to
I
enter.
agree with that one completely, yes.
So that's gonna be a may.
What section?
12.
Thank you.
After the comma where it says water will be, may be furnished by special contract, or may only be furnished by special conflict. Section 14. City of Gerhart established a water rate schedule, so this makes it a one-time thing. I think this is where we should insert the authority to continue to do that in, future rate adjustments as necessary. This is where we were thinking about, I know there was some discussion about regularly scheduling a look at this in the budgeting. So this is where I think that wording would be inserted. That creates that schedule so that we don't drop off and we don't get into a problem again where a couple years down the road, we're like, hey, we need to look at this.
Yeah, that policy was established by resolution, so placing that policy in there would be.
Yeah, so this is where we give ourselves the authority to do that ongoing.
Yeah.
How about the water rate schedule, shall be reviewed by city council?
There's some pretty good verbiage in that, resolution. We'll match it
Okay.
as close as we can.
Okay, section 15, tapping fees. See, the second sentence, per Article 2, Section 4 of this ordinance, payment of flat tapping fees are due prior to installation with excess tapping fees due, but it doesn't make it, it says that they're due, but it doesn't require that they actually be paid. So I think we need to change the wording, massage the wording of that. Payment of flat tapping fees instead of are due, I would take that out and insert shall be required. So payment of flat tapping fees shall be required prior to installation with excess tapping fees due within 10 days of invoice date. Is that unacceptable? Does that in any way change what you intended to do?
No, it doesn't. It's good.
Okay, so page 6. Section 1, application for water. Going down to the last line of the first paragraph. I'm not even sure I know which owner we're referring to. So if we could clean it up as far as whether it remains with the owner who accrued the fees, or if it gets passed on to the new owner, whoever buys the property. How do we clean up that a little bit to make it more clear?
You're in section 1, page 6.
Section 1, page 6, the last line.
You want it to run with the land?
Well, that's my question, is what is it you're trying to achieve with this? Because I'm not clear from reading this. And that would be, if I'm not clear, then somebody else isn't going to be clear, so we need to clean up the language, I think. In the event the consumer fails to remit monies owed and the premises go up for sale or transfer, the water lien attached lies solely with the owner of the premises. Is that going to be the owner who buys the premises? Is that going to be, so, I mean,
It's the previous owner.
So I think we need to clarify that it's the owner who accrued the fees.
Yeah, so.
I think we would want to record the lien and be paid out of escrow.
Well,
That's usually,
But
usually
sometimes
that's what you
people
do.
who pay cash don't. They're about 50% of the time that we get a check from a title company, and there's 50% we don't. So I don't know how that part works on the end of companies. I think that some title companies do water liens and some don't. So I don't know that we can we force them to do it?
Well, we could record it in our lien docket with the county, and then they would be required to.
I think we should. I think that's standard practice, is that the fees stay with the, because you're never gonna get the money out of the old, if he wasn't paying before, he's certainly not gonna pay you now that he doesn't own the property anymore.
We haven't had to deal with that very much in the water side of things, thankfully, but we have had to in
For
other
what? Deal with
instances.
what?
Putting people on the lien docket.
We, like I said, we get the money when the house sells.
Okay, so again, to me, this does
But
not
you've
clarify which owner is responsible
Yeah.
for that.
Yes.
And so it needs to be clear which owner we're going to go after.
Right.
If it's gonna stay with the property, or if it stays with the property, we need to clarify that. If it stays with the previous owner, then we need to clarify that.
I think it should stay with the previous owner.
It does say consumer.
Well, the consumer is the person that's the renter, the one that's
And
leasing
that
or
doesn't work
renting.
with our,
Yeah, but I'm talking about this specific
Yeah, the
line. In the
owner.
event the consumer fails to remit monies owed and the premises goes up for sale or transfer, which again, to me is awkward wording, the water lien attached lies solely with the owner of the premises.
At the time of sale or transfer?
Right,
Would that work?
the consumer,
Right, so I think what they're saying, what the attempt was that if the renter doesn't pay the water bill and then the property's listed, it's the owner of the property that's responsible versus the consumer who we're not gonna be able to track down. So regardless of whose name the water bill is in, it would be paid by the owner of the property, that is transferring interest.
That rented it, the facility that rent, or, yeah.
Right.
so let's think about that, because I still feel strongly that you're saying it's gonna go up for sale in there, because now you're talking about two owners. The new owner, the old owner needs to, I think it would be more protective for us and serve our purposes better when it's clear.
Authorized agent shall be responsible for all accumulated charges in the event that the consumer moves without having paid all outstanding water charges.
So I think in the section 1, we do kind of specify it in 1.1, but we just say the water lien is the responsibility of the owner transferring the property.
Okay,
So
there you go.
then it wouldn't be the transferee, it would be
Okay.
the transferor.
Thank you. And then under section 1.1, the line that starts with event, right after that is the that we don't need, so you can cross out that. In the event the consumer moves without having paid all, you don't need the that there. Same thing in the next line, right after the word event.
You're on page 6.
I'm on page 6, section 1.1. There's just a couple of superfluous that's.
Towards the bottom.
Yeah. The owner authorized agents shall be responsible for all accumulated charges in the event the consumer moves without having paid all outstanding water charges owed to the city. You don't need that there, and then in the next line, it's the same. And then on page 7,
Right. There's 2. There's 2?
That,
Okay,
there.
gotcha. Okay, page what?
page 7, second line down, the sentence starting with the word all. Insert prior to the word all, fees billed to. So this line would then read, fees billed to all metered accounts shall be due and payable on or before the 20th of the month due.
Got it? You got that?
So then coming down to line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 2/3 through, it says, the terms of this ordinance, comma, will result in water being shut off. I think we say may instead of will. Allow us to make reasonable judgment based on real-time information.
Do all these mays?
It would give us discretion if there was some sort of hardship.
But it still would give us the ability.
Yes.
one, the last line, the city can accept, I would take out can and just say the city accepts payment in person, via phone, or electronically online. Does that even really need to be in the ordinance? The method of how we accept payments, don't we have a regular, don't we have a standard, something that says how we're gonna accept all payments?
Not that I
Anything?
know of. I mean, not like a written anywhere.
Yeah, I'm not sure that needs to be in there, but if it is, I would take out the word can accept, because, that's a little too, this is something that it should be clear. Instead of it can be this way, it should be this way. If we're gonna do it, if we're gonna say how we're gonna accept payments, then it needs to be an absolute.
Well, my one concern would be if we're saying they can pay over phone, and there might be some sort of credit, because we're allowing people to pay via credit card. There might be some sort of verification we want to do, or if someone's using someone else's credit card.
Do we need that line in there?
I think we can probably strike it.
Okay.
I agree, but I don't think we need it.
The payment line.
The
Yeah,
last
the
line.
very last line about how we're gonna accept payment.
Yeah.
The rest
They
of
can drop it off in the box.
shove it in the door.
Yeah.
Shove.
2.2, and this is not for nothing, this is just consumers who request a seasonal account, rather than that.
Oh, thank you.
And then I think my last question is based on the fee schedule down at the bottom, turn on and turn off, $25. Is that you tell me, is that an appropriate hourly fee based on the time that it would take our staff to go out there and do it?
We've had a few discussions about this, and
That seems low to me.
generally we're pretty quick.
Well, we've never charged these fees. And
Right.
so this fee is gonna be new to people, and it's going to be potentially increasing, like when we have a shut off notice, then they have to go turn off and it'll be 25, and then they have to go back turn on for 25. So when you figure the compounding amount, I think we tried to think, let's start here to see.
Well, I'm just gonna guess based on our hourly wage, I mean, that might be a little bit low, and then I'll just, having said that, I would have thought that fee would have been at least $40, because I understand it's a fee to cover our time, but I think the second part of that is it's also supposed to kind of be a deterrent, keep people from having us to have to come out and turn it on and off for, because they're not fixing their stuff or whatever. So I don't
It's
know.
like no payment, like if they don't have a payment,
Right,
if they don't make a
right.
payment, then we shut off their
Right.
water, then they owe their payment, then they'll owe $25 for us to turn it off, then they'll owe 25 for having, 20 for the door hanger, then they'll owe 20 more for the second door hanger, then they'll owe 25, so now we've added, and I agree, it's supposed to be a deterrent, but these are people who, some of them already have issues paying their water bill.
Right, well, and I
so-
get that, if they can't pay 25, they can't pay 150, so, okay, that was my question. I'm okay
I'm
with
not
it if you
opposed
are.
to increasing them if that's what you wanna do.
We had the same conversation,
We did.
I'd be curious to see what other people think about that.
so we ended up on, let's take this approach, let's start here, see how it works, see if it makes sense for us, but I think so far it's gonna be a much better situation for the Wi-Fi.
That's it?
And I'm done. Thank you.
I've got a
Thank you
question.
for your patience.
You got a question?
First of all, let me just comment, I think we're gonna have to start paying Dana. My question is on page 3, top line. It says, "No person supplied with water service from the city water system shall be entitled to use it for any purpose other than as defined
or to supply water to any other person or property. And my question is, what about the people that are allowing people to have campers on their land, like in my neighborhood, and campers are hooked up, the person's living in the camper, and the campers are hooked up to the water?
Law aside, I don't think that there would be any major, well,
It would be no different than a hose connected to a pool or some other type of device.
No, because it's an ongoing usage by
But
somebody
I
living.
think that's more of a violation of another ordinance.
yeah, I think that the way that the water is used, it could be used for any type of thing that you could possibly think of within your property. But if you were gonna begin getting a water trailer and trucking it somewhere else and selling that water for profit,
But that's not how this reads. It
Or
says
having-
to supply water to any other person.
or property, the intention of that was be outside of your property. So if you were to hook a hose up and then start supplying water to somebody we turned it off of,
I understand.
that would be a violation.
But we could add it on your property. We could add outside your property, if that makes it more clear.
Maybe it does.
Well, it says to any other persons or property. So like if you did, this probably seems like we're going pretty far afield, but a city that I represent actually had this problem. So, so
And we've never had the problem that we know of.
right, so
Other than that.
the people that are on wells, if their wells start going dry, then they're looking for the jurisdiction with the least expensive water, so it can be trucked, is an experience I had for the first time this year. So, I think that, I think that we could, or we could say, outside the district.
I don't
know what-
think this is gonna solve that problem.
Yeah, I think we
Necessarily.
attack that through another means.
But I think that one should be taken care of more through the ordinances that we have and how to.
Yeah, because I occasionally put my RV in my driveway and hook it up to water so that I can
Yeah,
clean
Right,
stuff.
but you're not living in it.
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is, again, what the issue that you're having is that somebody's living in an RV on property, and that's a whole nother issue that we would have to address in a different manner from this.
yeah, but good point.
Yeah, that
Water
is a good
service,
point.
water entitled people.
Any other questions?
No, that's all.
Dana?
No, sir.
Rita? I do not like number 9 on page 4 at all, because I'm not gonna let anyone come in my property and tear my walls apart to look at my pipes just because they want to inspect my piping. I am just livid with that one. Nobody's gonna do that.
Yeah,
Clean
I'm
this
not
up a
sure
little bit?
exactly how this works in the building realm. If there's something dangerous going on, the city needs to be able to take care of it.
Right, but inspecting the condition of water pipes. You've gotta take all my sheetrock down to find that one pipe that you want to inspect.
So.
It doesn't say anything about the cost, doesn't say anything about replacing the sheetrock.
We're done at the meter, we tell everybody that.
Yeah, we're done at the meter, but let's say somebody had a sewage pump hooked up to their water system. Somehow they were hooking it up, they needed water supply, there's a sewer there, they do not have a backflow device. We need to protect our water system from taking in things from private property.
Mhm.
And that, I think, is the nature of this.
The nature of it then needs to be more specific, because
Yeah.
right now, this is just an open wound on my property. It doesn't say,
Yeah, it's too permissive, I get it.
it sets me on fire right now just looking at this. And I hate doing that at this time.
No idea.
It just,
Quick, the fire chief's here.
yeah, he's waiting patiently for something.
It's gonna be in the fire extinguisher.
You see, you understand what I mean? I just.
Yeah, you don't want us on our property just, kind of looking around and trying to dig into your walls and get your water pipe. But then
Are you
we,
going under my house? I mean, I
Then
could
we
have
need-
bodies there.
It's okay.
Let me get some water. I'm gonna put it
I
out.
have my own attorney, just so you know.
Yeah, I understand both points.
And I understand, someone's got a sewer line that's attached to his water line, and he's got no backflow device, but isn't there some way we can change that so,
Emergencies, situation.
I just,
I mean, has this circumstance ever come up previously? Like, is there?
no, but for some reason, I just feel like that there's something that this ought to be there because of this reason, and I can't think of what it is.
We do have I know we have wells, people have wells in certain areas, and
We've had some difficulty with that.
and I could see a bad well being pumped into city water, because they're tied up. They wanna get water into their house, but their well's bad, but it's still pumping into their house, and then they got water from the city, and all of a sudden you got,
And they're overpressuring and, yeah.
right.
If it's violates, there's a plumbing violation.
Let's see here, city water department shall have access to proper hours.
I'm wondering if there's some other regulatory code where we could put this sort of thing in it.
Yeah, can we address that someplace else?
I mean, that feels more like a violation to me.
Well, and this is the
Yeah,
ordinance.
right.
This is where we would be basing the violations from, and it wouldn't go into the rate ordinance because that's just specifically for the rate, so it would, something to give us the ability to access properties would have to be in here. But I don't know how to word it better.
I don't either right now,
And here's something else.
Is it a violation, a plumbing violation that would entitle you if there's no backflow? in
Well,
your-
then, how do you get the plumbing violation? And it's in your wall. It's, where do you get reasonable,
Because this water, sewage water is going somewhere, and you know it.
yeah, it's just,
I get exactly what you're saying. I'm just trying to figure out how can we ensure that we have, if we become aware of one of these access issues, how can we quickly get access where we're not having to go through a lengthy judicial process.
Can I make a suggestion just for the interest of time? Could we approve this without that and then amend it later once we figured out that portion of it?
That's what Justine and I were just talking about. Nervous, but hey, we don't have anything right now, so we're.
Yeah, so let's,
We're doing
and
better.
and you're saying it hasn't happened, so
Yeah.
with our luck, it'll happen tomorrow, but let's hope not.
So we don't wanna just wait to approve this until
No, because we
it's-
don't have anything that protects us right now, and I think we need to.
I think we could leave the header for section 9 and just strike the language and bring back other language when we have time to think about it. It's not 9 at night.
okay.
so we're leaving section 9, access to premise for inspection, but we're not having any language. Do we need to write something like blank intentionally, or just leave it?
No, if you look at our
Okay.
comp plan, there's
Okay,
one.
just checking.
There's an instance where it just says 7, period.
Okay, good.
So we have.
I like intentionally though, so that people know that we're not complete idiots, that we
Greenhouse.
really put some time and thought into making it blink.
Okay, so now we've got a motion, we've had a discussion, we've had some corrections. Can we just go on to the vote on this? Is that what we're doing with
Someone-
corrections?
Yeah, to make, a motion to adopt as amended.
I make a motion that we approve as amended.
A second, please?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those against?
I said aye.
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Ordinance 941. An ordinance amending the City of Gerhart zoning ordinance regarding the placement of political signs in Gerhart.
So I spent some time looking at what other jurisdictions had done, Oregon law, free speech as well, constitutional free speech protections. This came up last election. I got a call from somebody, believed that a sign was too big, and I explained that we didn't have an ordinance, and according to Justice Stevens and the Supreme Court, that temporary political signs got special protections, so I wasn't comfortable removing the sign. And then that person's like, well, what if I put up an even bigger sign? And then I said, well, I guess you demonstrate that I'm being viewpoint neutral in the regulation. And that, you know, hilarity did not ensue. And
I thought it was funny.
I did not. And anyway, a lot of people didn't think it was funny because then I got a lot of phone calls. And so not feeling PTSD at all about that. So I kind of looked at, well, what can we do? The most common things that cities do is they regulate the political signs in the public right of way. To just clarify, you can't put them in there. They have some signs have a fee for removal if the signs are in the public right of way. And they also have a fine. In Gerhart, it's not always clear if it's somebody's yard or if it's an unimproved public right of way. And so I had noted that maybe we should have some flexibility. So if someone thinks it's on their property and it's not, we could just say, hey, could you move it 10 feet? And then it's in their yard. Other things we might want to consider, the duration that they're up for. The two most common periods that I've seen are either 60 days or 90 days. I put in the 90, but 60 I think certainly defensible. Just to clarify that people shouldn't, like, even if the tree's on the person's property, they shouldn't nail the sign to the tree or anything like that. We're really talking about in-ground political signs with no illumination or blinking lights. Or if people want to put the signs in their window, I put in some coverage limitations on that, just so they would be able to do that. But we would have standards. And again, as I went through this, my thought was just to provide as clear and objective standards as possible so that people would understand this is something I can definitely do, or this isn't something that I can do. So if it's 6 square feet, we could have said 4, but 6 to me felt like that would address, you know, those 2x2 signs and also those 3x2s. So they would know the size, they would know the duration, they would know where they could put them, so not in public right away on their private property. Other things to think about are that, do we want to limit it to 1 sign per yard per candidate? So like if you want person X, you could put in their sign. If you want someone running for judge, you could put their sign too, but not necessarily put in 5 signs for the same person or more. So we could do that, add that. And then the other thing is there's some recent case law for people that have signs that are kind of not supporting a candidate or a measure, but otherwise send a message that might be deemed political. So one of those would be like a equal rights sign or a peace sign or something like that. And those signs deserve protection too. Under the cases, the most recent cases, on that temporary basis. The other piece would be signs so that the state provides regulations on that certain political signs for a candidate or a measure would have requirements as far as the pack they were from, etc. That language would not necessarily be on a sign that had a peace sign, because it's not being sponsored by a candidate for office or advocating for a specific election issue, more just, I think most of them advertise for more human rights issues. So those wouldn't need to have those sort of, because they're not covered under the state's elections laws. So this was kind of my best. As I recalled, a lot of the issues that came up that people were concerned about, I tried to address all of those in, and also just make sure that we were in line with the protected speech under the U.S. Constitution and the Oregon Constitution. I feel like we are. And then if we want to limit it to one sign per candidate or measure, we can add that language in. I wasn't sure how you guys would feel about that.
I would like that in,
Okay.
wherever it goes.
Generally or allowed?
Allowed signage would be
And we do have the state PAC.
Yeah, it's under section 2, item 3, candidate sign shall meet state law requirements.
Okay.
And the state updates those very regularly, which is why I just
Yeah, I like
generally,
that.
versus trying to specify,
Yeah.
because I can't answer.
That way we don't have to be aware every time they suddenly change it, which took, I think the changes this last time in 2020 took a lot of people by surprise.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that were very experienced that weren't aware of those requirements.
And then, so my question is, so this ordinance is specific to signs related to elections, right?
Yes.
So when we're talking about under the allowed signage and you're talking about the temporary signage, we're not talking about for sale sign on houses, we're not talking about the contractors that wanna put out their signs saying, I just did this yard,
No.
that kind of stuff. We're gonna address that later, or is there an opportunity for us to look at it, because under that.
We can come
ordinance-
back and do something on that.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
okay.
can
Then that's-
certainly come back and do that. I just wanted to, if this goes tonight, it would be,
Specific to election.
it would
Yeah.
be, and then January for the second reading, and then goes into effect February, and then that's a little more than 90 days before the election. So this would be in effect at that point.
Right.
Are we having a discussion about this now, or? I'm confused, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are, okay. Are you done?
Mm-hmm.
Who's gonna monitor all this and enforce this?
It's gonna be code enforcement, just like it is now.
Code enforcement?
Yeah, this is in the zoning code, so it does not have anything, it wouldn't be under the police department.
Okay, so it's
It'd be under-
Angie and you then, or,
Correct.
okay. Second thing was down, signs may not be attached to trees, shrubbery, utility poles, or traffic control signs. Do we wanna put fences on there?
What would that solve?
Well, they can put it on their own fence, but not on public property, and that's already addressed.
No fence on the fence line.
Well, the fence line's property line, so it would be,
It's their property, right?
right,
Yeah.
So can signs go on fences is all I'm
Yes.
asking.
yeah.
Okay, so you don't wanna put that in.
Yeah,
It's up to you.
that's up to you. But currently, the way it's written, it could be on a fence, as long as it was in their property.
I think with our recent history I would not advise that we tell people they can't hang a sign on their fence. I think they should be able to hang a sign on their fence if they want.
All right.
As long as it's not in the public right, not on the fence over the creek,
Right.
our fence.
Okay, So, next question, existing signs from past elections that are still around town, what do we do about those?
They would be removed, and then the question is if,
So nothing,
because it's after, it's the period, is 90 days prior to the election, we could do 60 if you want that, 60 or 90, and then removed within 5 days following the election.
so no grandfathered in past elections.
Right.
Just asking.
Oh boy, I don't think we would say that a temporary election sign would be a pre-existing non-conforming use.
Well,
What what signs are you talking about?
there's a few signs
Like
that
Trump
are,
2020?
yeah, or, yeah.
Just checking.
And it's
For
in
one.
their window, their house.
Well, yes, then it would be that this goes into effect, and then they can have the sign up 90 days prior to the election, and then they need to remove it 5 days after the
Yeah, I'm
election.
talking about past election signs that are still up.
Well, my hope is that people would want to remove those because the election is no
They
longer.
don't want to remove them because some of them are still mad about things.
I'm going to have to think a little bit about that.
Okay, and then my last question is, who's allowed to remove the signs that are in, what's the word I want?
Right away,
No, that aren't,
right away?
no, that are past their due date to be removed. Who's allowed to remove the signs? Code enforcers? Just curious.
Well, I don't think, you're talking about somebody's private property, I don't think we'd go on somebody's private property to remove the sign,
I
So
think we would
it
issue
would then be
a violation
a
ticket and
violation.
then end up in court if that's what it would be. So it could be
Okay.
protracted, right?
Are we good?
Because you're not giving me permission to just go on people's property.
It's not done.
Once the
It's
sign's
not
up.
a big deal.
It's
If
what?
we
It's
do,
not a
then
done
it's.
deal.
Right, no, we're not gonna wanna do that.
Good, good, good.
So government in the right, get much.
I'm here to help.
So Peter, are you gonna make some changes to this? It should,
Well, I think we wanna add, there will be a limit of 1 sign per candidate or measure per yard. The other thing is that the signs our prior sign ordinance did not address temporary political signs.
Right.
That was not enforced because it was unconstitutional. Because it was for the election. So if there's no longer an election where the candidate is in that election, then I don't know that I don't think that the people would be able to rely upon that in order to keep the signs up. That said, the whole purpose of this is to tamp down controversy and have people understand what their rights are and when and where to do things. So, like, I hope that with the passage of time, people could come into compliance. I mean, I do not want to start the whole business again, but on the other hand, we want people to understand what they can and can't do. So, because we don't want them wasting, political signs can be expensive. I mean, if they put a ton of them in the right of way and then they get picked up and then they have to pay fines to get them back. I mean, because I've had instances in other cities that had a sign ordinance in effect for this, where people just unwittingly put the signs in, the Republic, they just didn't know, their volunteers didn't know any better. So, hopefully this would be an educational tool.
If I had signs in the right of way, I would pick those. I'm the representative of the property owner, so I would go in and get those. If I had a sign that was left over that said Scooby-Doo for President 2020, I would probably write them a letter, take them through that process in order to get it resolved
do
that
we
way.
need that in here?
No, it says 90 days and 5, so I mean, we wouldn't want to hamstring ourselves with
Grandfathering in, because then you gotta track who's grandfathered and who isn't, and that's a whole.
Well, I mean, I would argue that those signs would have been illegal but for the fact that they were a temporary political sign. So, I mean, that's when Justice Stevens wrote the opinion, it was that temporary political signs are unique in their ability to get out your message in a cost-effective manner. So for every car that drives by, they see that sign. There's no way that a person would be able to have those conversations. So it is because it is political and because it is uniquely effective, arguably, that they are allowed and shouldn't be regulated by cities. If it's for an election that's no longer an election, it wouldn't have any of those constitutional protections because people wouldn't be necessarily voting on an issue or for a person or what have you. So I think they could be removed. With that said, I think we need to think about, if wounds are still raw and, going onto someone's property, that probably would not be very popular and could lead to more issues, actually. So.
One other question, what about flags? Political flags with people's names on them as candidates?
If somebody flew the American flag and then the Scooby-Doo flag underneath it.
Do we need to include flags under this?
I think a flag arguably for a candidate would be a sign, so as long as the flag is less than 6 feet. This doesn't specify that it needs to be wood or cardboard or laminate or anything. It could be whatever. I hadn't thought about the flags. That could complicate things a little bit.
Okay, can we motion with an amendment as amended? Would you be happy with that?
No, I want it rewritten. I want to see it rewritten, sorry.
We can certainly do that, but then it won't be in effect prior to, it will be in effect prior to the election, but not prior to the 90 days. And so just so I'm clear when I'm rewriting this, what I'm amending is number 4, per the mayor's request, there will be a limit of 1 sign per candidate or measure per yard.
Under allowable signage.
Under allowable signage.
Allowed signage.
So that would be number 4.
Okay.
Is there any other changes?
There's no other changes besides that?
If there are no other changes, I'm gonna make a motion to approve as amended.
So that's all we changed, what's going on? Okay,
I second.
that's fine.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against? All right, passes. Thank you. Moving on. Thank goodness. Old business. Anyone wanting to comment on the old business may do so at this time for 3 minutes. We are going to go with the City of Gerhardt's strategic blueprint. Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no hands raised. What are we doing with this? Chad, is this just
This is informative. This is old business. This is making the changes that were requested. We finished the draft, put it together in this piece of paper, and then are just presenting it to you as you requested.
all right, that's great, we've done that.
Nothing for you to do on this.
Okay, moving on, old business, anyone wishing to comment on Pacific Core Clean Energy and source materials in the audience? Seeing no hands raised, let's move on. Will you very quickly read the synopsis? Do you need to?
No.
Okay, everyone knows that we did this? Okay, then we're moving on. New business. Anyone wishing to comment on new business? Seeing no hands raised. All right. I make a motion, and I need a consensus to move, to make the starting salary on step 5 for the new training officer and division chief. And this is because of the education and the training that she has. The consensus is, if you vote yes, we do this, and if you vote no, we're not going to do it.
Quick question, the savings that we have already achieved because Hutch has been gone is going to offset this, so we will not need to do anything with our budget for this fiscal year. Next fiscal year is when this will affect us, correct?
At this point, based on what we've spent, that's accurate.
Okay.
I
And
mean, I can't
even with
judge
the
if something
overtime that
would-
we've had to pay to make up?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I don't know what might happen, we could have worse things happen. But
Right,
I think
right.
that we have money even in other places, that if we need to do the resolution in June to move appropriations there, I think that that we could cover this.
Okay.
All right? I'm going to ask for a vote for consensus. All those in favor say aye.
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 Who's second? Oh, no.
This is consensus.
Sorry.
Okay? Chief?
Thank you guys very much.
All right, moving as quickly as we can. Planning Commission appointments. I am going to, what did they call that? Recommend that Eric Halpern serve on the Planning Commission. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
I'm not in favor.
Okay. All those against?
Aye.
Okay. We have 3-1. All right. Eric, you're on board?
Thank you very much.
All right, next is the City of Gerhart, Oregon State Fire Marshal Intergovernment Agreement. And are you going to speak to this,
I can.
Chief?
Yes.
Okay, would you?
So this is for the tender that I've been dangling in front of you for about a year or so now, that we applied for and that we were awarded the grant from the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office. This is the IGA for that piece of apparatus. So this is a 3-year contract with the state, and essentially we could renew it within anywhere in the initial term or at the end of that initial term. This is pretty standard practice with all like AFG grants, what have you, and we got other apparatus on it. With that, in here it states how much that we can be reimbursed for yearly maintenance costs up to,
3,500?
yes, thank you, each year for maintenance costs. So this lays out our obligations. We have to house it indoors, have to plug it in. It will replace our current tender that is 27 years old, outdated, out of compliance, out of practice, and in need of much, much, much costly repairs. In order for us to essentially accept the apparatus, then council would need to accept this IGA with that. And then there is a caveat that they wrote in here that there could be discussion within the initial or the renewal application period to then all ownership be given to the entity that's housed for, but that'll be a separate discussion, separate contract and agreement, everything from there.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Yes.
If something happens to this vehicle that renders it incapacitated or whatever, does insurance pay the state or?
So one of the things with this on here, we'll need to list OSFM on our insurance. Our insurance is aware of that, and it's just like listing, as far as I know, and Justin can help you. It's like listing them as a name on there. But our City of Gerhart is covering it just like it does every other apparatus we have.
Does this increase our insurance costs because it's a newer and probably more expensive vehicle?
It will increase ours because it will now be our vehicle
Yeah.
instead of theirs.
Yeah.
Because it
This-
was their vehicle.
Is that legal to do?
Yeah, it's legal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the
We've
current
already
tender,
worked it out, how that's gonna be covered, or we've got the
It
budget to
will
cover
budget,
it?
we'll have to budget for it, because it will be more money.
Will this go here or
No.
up to the?
at the substation, and this will replace the district board. The only apparatus they own is the current tender, and they are aware that that transition will be taking place and stuff. We had multiple discussions with that in mind.
And a tender is a water tanker. A water tanker is an airplane with tanks, so you can't call a tender a water
There's
tanker.
no wings attached to this.
So I just, yeah, bring everybody else up on that.
Okay. I'm glad we got that all taken care of. Is there a motion from the table
What do we need? Give you a
to approve
motion.
entering into?
Motion to approve entering into the attached IGA with OSFM to host a new pumper tender.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You got everything you wanted.
Merry
And it'll never happen again.
Mr. Mayor, I think we should specify that the other two planning commission members that you want to reappoint, you should vote on them as well.
Ah, very good.
And I think we should also, again, thank you, we had some phenomenal applications.
Right, and the applications all go into the pool, so you don't have to come back and get interviewed again. We can just pick from the pool.
Yeah,
The
this
names of the other two are Russ Taggart and John Mesper. I nominate those two to re-up and serve another term.
Can we break it down by one at a time?
No.
Okay. Okay, aye and aye.
A motion to,
She's two, and she voted yes. She seconded and voted yes.
oh,
I did.
and a yes vote? A yes vote?
Yes.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Anyone got concerns? Keep me straight there.
I would like to thank Terry Graff for his service on our
Yes.
planning commission. He really studied things. He was always very diligent in his work.
Yes, it's good to thank him. It was kind of tough, that last meeting, for a lot of people. All right, no concerns from any counselor? Motion then.
I move we adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.